Spacefarer. Hey guys, it's Caleb. Quick preamble to this one, 2 parts. 1, appreciate the people who are supporting us. Thank you so much. YouTube or Patreon are the 2 best places to do that. You can do it as little or as much a month as you would like. If you like this show as much as you like 1 cup of coffee a month, then, you know, $1 or $2 a month would be really great. Super appreciated and seem to make some kind of rational sense. It would help me continue to make this show and make it more the center of my life. And the bigger that I grow this show, the better the quality of guests I will be able to get, I think. Some of them are blowing me off, and I think you would love to hear what those people have to say, and I think we can convince them if we can get this show up to, like, I don't know, 10,000 viewers or something. Other people seem able to do that, so I feel like we should be able to hang with some of the more commercial UFO ventures, shall we say politely. Okay, preamble part 2. This is John Ramirez. He is a former CIA officer. We don't call them agents, apparently. The agents are the ones in the field. The officers, they work at the CIA. Does sound like John did some field work. But anyway, there's a bunch of interesting stuff in here. I just want to set expectations a little bit, and I'm feeling a little defensive and protective of John because I'm extremely grateful that he spoke to me at all. He spent many months ignoring me before finally accepting this invitation. He was very kind and generous with his time. We spoke for over 3 hours. I just want to level set that we don't get any farther really on his most explosive claims. So if you come to this episode and listen for 3 hours and go, he didn't say anything that he didn't say already in other venues, well, that's accurate from a UFO exploration perspective. What you will get here in this 3 hours that you don't get anywhere else is like a bigger sense of John's experience at the CIA, what it's like to work in an intelligence agency, what it's like for him as an experiencer to think about this stuff in that context, and just like you'll have a more holistic vision of him as a person, I think. And we do touch on his most explosive claims, which include that he had 2 direct reports, as in people who worked for him, who he believes were read into the quote program, end quote, like the secret research of UFO propulsion capabilities and attempts to reverse engineer them. And he got some confirmation from a fellow CIA officer, we think, somebody who would know, that the CIA or some other intelligence agencies have some information about the existence of hybrid DNA, which suggests that we understand something about whatever the non-human's DNA is in this equation. And, you know, of course, we understand human DNA at least a little bit. So we do touch on those things, but I don't press him really aggressively. I kind of wish I'd been more of a jerk about it, but I'm also glad that I wasn't, because I'm just so grateful that John was willing to speak with me for as long as he did. And I just want a little bit to make a public service announcement about how people in the UFO community should treat people who are coming forward with the limited information that they can, because John is in the process, as you'll hear in this episode, of leaving social media because he's been so badly treated around this particular subject. Like, understandably, there's nothing we hate more than someone who has part of the picture but can't share more. We want the whole picture. We want people to just say, yeah, I talked to this admiral and they told me XYZ. And sometimes they just legally can't, or they can't for sort of professional, personal respect reasons. And we just have to accept that. And I know it's really frustrating. I'm really frustrated by it too. But I want to set the tone here that if you're watching this episode with the expectation that you're going to get more secret information, and then if you don't get that secret information, you're going to be mad at John, then I think you should just not watch this episode, because it's just going to make you mad. But if you want a bigger picture view of his perspective on the world and to learn some fun things about the CIA alongside some speculation about what might be going on with non-human intelligence, I think you'll really enjoy this deep dive. I just think you need to prepare yourself to accept it at that level as a worldview share rather than a secret puzzle unlock. And broadly, I think we should probably try to approach more conversations in this space as worldview shares, as opposed to expecting that any one interview is going to have the secret and we're finally going to understand it. That is a long process that's going to take pushing for science and disclosure and maybe personal experience with first contact in a public setting. I get into that a little bit with John at the end and pick his brain about how he thinks that should go. So curious about how you think that should go. You could comment here if you'd like to have a conversation about that. I hope you enjoy the episode. Thank you for listening to this long rambling preamble. Have a great day. What the UFO? I'm speaking with John Ramirez today. John, it's great to talk to you.
Oh, it's nice being here. Thanks very much for inviting me, Caleb. I know it's been a while since you first contacted me, and I told you that I wasn't doing interviews at the time. You did contact me, and that soon I will be. And so people have reached out to me, and I wanted to make sure that I've at least give you an opportunity. You've never interviewed me before. So I'm always interested in seeing what kind of interesting questions a new host might ask me. So I'm looking forward to this very much.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to it too. As you've alluded to, you've done some big interviews recently, so people are probably familiar with you, but I'll just introduce you formally. John is a former CIA officer. One role that you held, I believe, was Chief of Electronic Intelligence. Is that right? And were there some other roles you performed in the organization that you'd like to tell us about?
Well, yes. I was mostly in electronic intelligence, or as we say in the IC, ELINT, E-L-I-N-T. It's one of the branches of signals intelligence, or SIGINT. So it's just the branch of SIGINT that deals with weapon systems emissions and emanations, like missile seeker radars or target acquisition radars that are associated with like ballistic missiles or surface-to-air missiles, air-to-air missiles, that type of thing. And as well other platforms. So aircraft, fighter aircraft, foreign ballistic missile defense systems, things of that sort.
Cool. Okay. And to give us a general roadmap here, I'd like to broadly go CIA, NHI, WTF for our conversation. So a little bit like what it's like to work in the intelligence community, then what we think is going on with the phenomenon. Love to hear your insights, your thoughts. You have some really interesting experiences we could get into if you're open to that. And then I'd love to talk about what you think we should be doing collectively going forward, how we should be thinking about this subject and what we should be sort of cranking into operation on a societal and civic level to deal with some of the potentials that we're going to discuss here today. Does that sound roughly good as a roadmap?
Sure. We'll go that path. Sure.
Okay, cool. So I'll try not to retread too much because I've heard a bunch of your interviews. They're all great. I recommend people look you up on podcast platforms and listen to some. We'll start with just working at the CIA. I understand your term was about 25 years. The story I've heard you tell is that you got into this because you heard a cute girl say that's cool at 3 Days of the Condor, which is a Robert Redford movie about the CIA. And you said, I want to do something that makes cute girls say that's cool. And so you joined the CIA.
And to put that in context, I was with a bunch of sailors off my ship stationed in Pearl Harbor. So it was a theater in Honolulu. Near Waikiki Beach that we went to, and there were several ladies behind us. And of course, being sailors, we're sailors, so that was the sailor reaction, right? But I've always interested in working in the intelligence community. It's something that interested me because I was exposed to it in the entertainment industry. There were so many television shows and movies about spies, including the classic James Bond movies with Sean Connery, and TV shows of the era that dealt with ostensibly the intelligence community, being a spy. And so I like that type of entertainment genre. And I wanted to do that for a living. And I wrote an essay, when I was in middle school, I think it was 7th or 8th grade, about careers in the future that we might want to pursue. And we had to write an essay. What do you want to do when you grow up? One of those things. And I wanted to be a spy, to much laughter and derision from my classmates. But 25 years later, after I graduated, here I show up at a class reunion and they ask me, "What are you doing, John?" So I work for CIA. So, I got the last laugh.
Nice.
So that was kind of fun.
That's a great transition actually into something I wanted to ask, which is what's the difference between your perception of the intelligence community from media and what it was like on the ground? Like you hear people say that the Situation Room in the White House is actually pretty boring compared to how it looks in TV and movies. Was your feeling about working at the CIA, actually, this is pretty cool, or was it like a lot more dull and normal than you expected?
I would say it's very cool in the sense that here you have clearances, and now or you have the eligibility to know a lot of secrets regarding the government and regarding particularly how the government collects information. I would preface that CIA is a collection agency. We collect intelligence. The way we collect intelligence primarily is through human intelligence. That is, our operations officers are trained to recruit foreign nationals working in their own governments to spy against their own governments for the United States. And they'll do this for a variety of reasons. They're motivated perhaps because they don't like their government. It might be a philosophical reason that they want to help the United States. That was certainly true during the Cold War, when a lot of our agents were recruited because they were dissatisfied and disgruntled over the communist governments ruling their country. So we recruit these officers recruit these agents, and they provide us, after some very serious vetting, these agents we make sure they're not counterintelligence agents. That is, they're not providing us false information to deceive us or for in some way throw us off. But after they're vetted, they provide us with human intelligence about what's going on behind the scenes in their own governments. And there are ways to do that, either through direct contact through operations officers, or sometimes in my field of SIGINT, you might be able to collect electronically, you might be able to collect communication signals of their intentions. And certainly that's where SIGINT comes in, and technical intelligence. And also we have electro-optical intelligence from photography from space, that we can actually see what's going on the ground, so forth and so on. The most interesting was MASINT, M-A-S-I-N-T, Measurement and Signature Intelligence. And the S stands for not signals, but signature intelligence, MASINT. And that is more closely aligned with how we would detect and track UAPs. Because MASINT deals with like radiological sources, it deals with changes in the environment around that particular object of interest. Is it radiating radio frequency? Is it radiating nuclear signatures? So that is the most interesting part of it. Now, the Pentagon does this too. And so one of the concerns of mine is this duplication of effort throughout the intelligence community. Mm. But having spent time in the intelligence community, I've come to realize that every agency has its specialty. So there's a primary function for that agency, CIA, it's human intelligence. But we also, as secondary missions in support of human intelligence collection, we'll do all the other types of intelligence collection methods, such as SIGINT or such as MASINT. And we also utilize imagery intelligence provided by the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. Try to put together a picture of intents, of indications and warning. We want to know the plans and purposes of foreign governments behind the scenes. That helps policymakers make decisions. So that's why
so it sounds
CIA
like
is there.
Some of that stuff seems like it felt pretty cool. Does that sound fair? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like Hollywood. And it's not like you're jumping out of airplanes and parachuting into enemy territory, or
A party in Paris. Yeah.
yeah, you don't go to some operations officers do go to cocktail parties from the embassy, but they work out of embassies, for example. And others, we are covert and clandestine. That is, we're in the country. The embassy doesn't even know we're there, and we do things known as out of embassy operations. Out of embassy operations, you're there under, I would say, commercial cover. You're actually representing a real company that exists that has agreed to help the CIA, help the US government by providing us with actual commercial cover. And we're actually part of their workforce on paper. And we have enough literature, we have enough training in the company's business, line of business, that we can represent that company overseas. And so I could do sales for certain things because I knew about that company's products, and they taught me how to sell their products. And so I had to spend time with that company and learn about their processes of manufacturing, why their competition, why their product is better than another product, everything a salesman would need to do to sell something.
That is fascinating.
Go overseas and be salesman for that company. And in the meantime, you're actually doing covert and clandestine collection work for CIA.
That's I'm trained as an actor, and one of the reasons I find that appealing is the disappearing into other kinds of life, like experiencing other aspects of reality or other people's paths in life. And it seems like there's some of that in the intelligence community to this description you're
especially
providing.
in foreign operations, because you're basically following a script given to you, and you are playing a role. You have to act out a role. My role was to be a salesperson for this company selling this particular product. I had to memorize a new character name and a new bio. It's basically, as an actor, that you become that character in many ways. And I had to become the person I was supposed to be overseas, remembering another name, another bio. I live in another place other than my home in the Washington, D.C. area. I had to be familiar with the place I was supposed to be from, actually taking trips they're actually called familiarization tours, to familiarize myself with that particular town that this salesperson was supposed to live in.
Cool.
But,
you went to your fake hometown?
Right. And so the hometown is actually real. It's not made up.
Right.
It's a real town. It's a real city. It's
so
a real address. And you had to know, right, where's the grocery store from my house? How do I get
I used to love this restaurant.
Right. You had to know all that as part of your, what we call cover legend. So I got to do that, a lot of that. So in a way, I was acting out that role
I'm curious about
this person.
What was the culture like interacting with a whole bunch of people who do this secret, high intelligence stuff? How did it feel working at the CIA and working with colleagues who did lots of stuff like that? Was there a different vibe than you get from other social circumstances?
Well, speaking about CIA culture, every directorate seems to have its own culture. Definitely when I dealt with colleagues in the Directorate of Operations, in this particular, what we call area division in the Director of Operations, that was a certain culture that they had. It was different from my native culture back then, was science and technology. I was director of science and technology, and we had a culture in the directorate and also in my office and in my division, in my branch. But then, when you go out and reach out to colleagues in other parts of the agency or even other parts of the intelligence community, there definitely is a certain type of approach, I would say, a perspective to what you're doing or to what they're doing. And so there are different cultures, but you acclimate very quickly because back then, everyone was focused on mission. Mission was the most important thing to focus on at CIA. We want to accomplish the mission, and we'll do everything we can to accomplish the mission. And so we're all mission focused. So we had shared that of the culture of CIA in common. CIA is mission focused.
I want
And
to pick up
so,
on that, but I also want to ask to the side. I think I heard you say on another interview that the CIA encourages basically interagency date or intra-agency dating, that they would
well,
actually
yes,
prefer
yes, they did.
couples
And in
stay
fact,
within the family.
right. And so at CIA, I noticed that some of my colleagues who were younger had parents who were older, either the mother, the father, or both parents were CIA officers. And they
Really?
were recruited into the CIA because CIA knew their backgrounds.
Huh.
It's easier to vet a child, a dependent of a CIA couple, knowing that the couple was sent there, and everywhere in their assignments, and knowing
Yeah.
how the environment that they grew up in. It's easier to vet.
Interesting.
So I would say that's one part of it. Also, it was short-lived, but I do recall there was a singles club in CIA, a singles club at CIA, and so that was around. But in
Interesting.
a broader sense, yeah, it's easier to security-wise, it's easier to stay within your own community.
Yeah.
And within the CIA community, we all trust each other. And
Yeah.
but there again, if you have a spouse working in another part of CIA and they're doing something else, that spouse can't tell you what they're doing.
Sure.
I mean, there's still like compartments that they have that I won't have. So just being married doesn't allow you to know what they're doing. So there's
You're
security.
not cleared for that, honey. Sorry.
Exactly. And so that's well known. Also, there's a lot of trust involved because you go overseas, and for me, mostly they were unaccompanied tours. That is, you couldn't take anyone from your family with you.
Mm-hmm.
But in other tours, it is accompanied. So you can take a spouse with you. For example,
Okay.
I give you a prime example. You can be in the Directorate of Science and Technology. You could be sent to Alice Springs, where Pine Gap is located. Now, Pine Gap is a CIA facility. It is not an NSA facility. It is a CIA signals intelligence facility.
Okay.
NSA serves as a tenant, but the chief of facility was always a CIA officer, senior, and the deputy chief of facility was always an Australian SIGINT officer, very senior. And you could go to Alice Springs and bring your spouse, and they'll try to accommodate the spouse by employing the spouse inside Pine Gap Base, perhaps doing administrative work or something that if they don't have a technical background, they can do administrative work or other support type of activities.
Interesting.
Providing assistance. So there's that. But where I was at and the work I did, I was sent to what we call a denied hard target area. And that means it's a place where we don't have the most cordial of relationships. Although we may have an embassy there, the government might be hostile to the United States government, and you're susceptible to counterintelligence. That is, you're susceptible to their intelligence services trying to find out who you are and following you around.
Yeah.
And so, there's that aspect of it. So mine was
that must have been
unaccompanied.
nerve-wracking.
No, I mean, we're trained for that. We get trained how to do that, how to behave, how to act. And so the first time I went out overseas, I went with an experienced officer who showed me the ropes. This is how we get into the country. If you're asked at customs immigration of that foreign country certain questions, this is how you respond. And things like that. And basically, you respond like a stupid American tourist. You respond like the loudmouth, obnoxious American tourist, and no one suspects you. Because that's what that's the stereotype, and that's a stereotype. Now I know American tourists are not all like that, but the stereotype. That's the stereotype that if you a little bit louder, boisterous, whatnot.
Interesting. So then they just want to stop talking to you and they wave you into the country. All right.
Right. And in my case, since I was a salesperson, I try to make a sale. Try to get people interested in what I was selling. Oh yeah, did you know this latest? Yeah, I represent this company that makes this product. And You want to see some literature? I got some literature. You bore them to death. They leave you alone. So that's how you
Fascinating.
deal with conversations on a long overseas flight. That's how you deal with that conversation.
That's smart.
You try to live that life. You try to convince the other person, and of course, in acting, you're convincing the audience that you're that character in any way, shape, or form. You are that character. You're no longer Caleb, but you're the character you're playing. So I was playing a character, and so the folks in the director of operations are so much better at that. They're very, very good at that, and I would say that you almost have to have a sociopathic tendencies to succeed at CIA. You can't be a sociopath. You cannot be a clinical sociopath. You'll never get through the clearance process. But they do look for sociopathic tendencies because you have to detach yourself. You have to like not react to things as yourself, but as this other person. And you can't be bothered by what happens. If the character I'm playing is not supposed to be bothered by something, I can't react to something. And so you can look it up, CIA sociopath, and you'll get all kinds of Google hits on that. Other intelligence officers, CIA retirees have said CIA looks for sociopathic tendencies. And I was told that myself, outside of what I read on the internet. I was told that myself, that we look for that type of character. That's so it's most successful.
That's fascinating. It sounds like you're describing an insular culture, a culture with a lot of like internal respect, some internal cultural divisions, but like a fair amount of cohesion. I'm curious about how intelligence communities relate to each other. Like, is there a sort of natural level of respect, maybe even across like antagonism lines between like Russian and American intelligence operations, where they like respect each other's mutual incentives or something? Or are we like really close pals with the Five Eyes and like the Brits and the Canadians? And like what's it like interfacing with other intelligence agencies? And do you think intelligence operatives kind of respect each other even across national boundaries?
Well, I would say within the CIA, we do respect each other. As I described, we work to support human intelligence collection. And so there is a collegial atmosphere. I would say collegial. It's very much like a college campus where you have the Department of Mathematics, and then you might have the Department of History, and you have professors from both with different expertise, but they're all part of that university. So there's a sense of being part of something larger than yourself. And CIA, there certainly is that. So we do have respect for each other and what we do, because we don't do things in a vacuum. We all do things to support a certain mission, and to support that mission, you have to bring all parts of the agency together. Logistics officers, facility officers, even security officers, or even people who pay us, the people who are in dispersing. And then we have people who provide transportation. And in DS&T, we provided gadgets and trained operations officers on how to operate that certain gadget.
Cool.
Or trained the operations officer on how to train a foreign agent the operations officer recruited in a certain gadget. And mostly they're about communicating, phoning home. Because you can imagine if you recruit a foreign intelligence officer working for another government, how do they communicate that information back to CIA? It's going to be very difficult. And so they will need a special means of communication, a covert means of communication, COVCOM, as we call it, to get that message back to the United States. And so that gets into the real dark classified areas,
the nitty-gritty
areas. Yeah, I don't want to get too much into that, but have you seen enough television or movies? There's always the guy who isn't the main character, doesn't get to do the fancy stuff, drive the fancy sports cars, and go to cocktail parties, but is stuck in some godforsaken hole, wearing headphones or whatever, with like some gadget, some equipment. So in SIGINT, that's what I did. It was mostly clandestine SIGINT, serving a certain purpose that supported a certain mission.
Did you interface with other intelligence communities within like the American military? Like, I know
Yes,
there are
yes,
IC
absolutely,
groups.
yes. And that's where you see the cultural differences and a little bit of competition.
Mm,
Certainly, my closest competitor was the National Security Agency, because in CIA we had the Office of ELINT way back during the Cold War, which became the Office of SIGINT Operations, which is now the Office of Technical Collection, and that's all SIGINT. But we
okay.
did clandestine and covert SIGINT, and NSA also does SIGINT, but NSA is the SIGINT manager. They manage SIGINT for the entire community.
Okay.
And so they do their thing, but we relied on NSA because they provided us with databases. They are the arbitrator of everything that's SIGINT. So if I need to look up, example, ELINT, radar signals associated with weapon systems, I need to look up a certain radar system and the radar write-up about what is the signal characteristics of that particular system. I would go to an NSA publication. And
Okay.
I would talk to NSA colleagues because they are more attuned to the nitty gritty of that system. The same thing with weapon systems, large weapon systems. The Defense Intelligence Agency is the primary agency for studying like foreign missiles and foreign tanks, foreign submarines, so forth and so on.
Okay.
Big ticket weapon systems of foreign countries. But we also did that. And so we provided collection that they could not get. So if we recruited someone in an aerospace industry of a foreign country, then we can provide information through that connection with that agent and then provide information to the DIA while protecting that agent's identity. So they don't get everything,
Cool.
but they get the
Interesting.
results of what that foreign agent knew about a
The
certain
relevant
weapon
intel.
system or a program.
Interesting.
And
And clicking
usually,
out. Yeah, no, go ahead.
yeah, hold your thought. And usually, what we did were systems that were in the planning stages. That it was a thought in some foreign defense contractor's mind that they wanted to build something for their military. And so we try to recruit people who would know something before it gets built, before the decision to build it, and while it's still being tested in a hangar.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that's
Wow.
what we want to know. That's CIA's role.
You want to get
Now,
there before it happens at an
right. But if
operational
it's a deployed
infrastructural level.
system, if it's a deployed system that's already part of the inventory of a foreign military, DIA handles that very, very well. And they are getting into human. There's a collision there between NSA SIGINT and CIA SIGINT. And there's a collision between CIA human and DIA human.
Okay.
DIA also has a human service.
And then the
well.
other armed services also have intelligence communities, right? Like
Right,
there's
but
an
they're
IC of the Air Force and the Navy.
right, but they're more organic to their service.
Okay.
You know, they would want to know contingency plans. If we have to go against a foreign military, what does that foreign military have? What they can deploy against us? And what's our best answer? Or if we're going to go up against a foreign military, what should we bring to the table against that foreign military? What do they have to defend against us? So they're more, I'll call it an organic intelligence. So every unit in the military has some intelligence function. I don't know if it's still used, but it used to be called G2. The G2 function within that component is the intelligence component. Up in the Joint Chiefs of Staff, at that level, it's the J2.
Okay.
And so it's so important that the J2 and the Joint Chiefs also, in my day, served as the director of DIA. So there's that connection.
So it all goes up to the top of a pyramid.
And the other agencies that we have, the five sisters, CIA, NSA, DIA, NRO, NGA, the four of the sisters, NSA, NRO, DIA, and NGA, they're called combat support agencies by the Pentagon.
Okay.
We call them intelligence agencies under the DNI. They're combat support agencies under the Pentagon, under the Secretary of Defense.
Interesting.
And so again, there's another separation, a little bit of, I wouldn't say completely separated, but a differentiation is a better word of the culture.
And is it reasonable to say that the career tracks tend to stick near their agencies of origin, like rather than moving through different intelligence
You
agencies,
have to move
people
now.
will come up through
Right.
one? Do they move around, or if like if
Yes,
you're in?
yes. And it's in
Okay,
fact, it's required. Back in my day, not so much. So if you're a CIA officer, you might be CIA for your entire career.
hmm,
But now there's something called joint duty. And joint duty was instituted so that an officer of one agency can experience what it's like to work in another agency,
okay,
doing similar work. And so for me, my joint duty was the Office of Director of National Intelligence, ODNI. I went
okay,
into the National Counterproliferation Center,
okay,
dealing with WMD issues.
yeah,
And within the National Counterproliferation Center, which is now called something else, National, I wouldn't know what it's something to do with biosecurity. But
sure,
anyway,
okay,
it's Counterproliferation and Biosecurity,
okay.
NCBC. And
Glad we have
within
somebody
there
on that.
were officers from all over the community. We had State Department, we had FBI, we had DIA, NSA, NRO, NGA, you name it. They were there.
Interesting.
Department of Energy, in fact. Uh,
Okay.
we had Department of Energy officers in the NCPC back then.
That's
So
cool.
there you
So that sounds like
experience
more cross pollination than I would have expected.
exactly, you experience that culture. Same thing with all of the national centers in the ODNI are like that. There's National Counterterrorism Center, National Counter Security. There's a National Counterintelligence Center, National Counterterrorism Center, and National Counterproliferation. So all those, and also I think they're now National Cyber
Okay.
is part of
That
ODNI.
seems important.
My information is dated since I left in
Sure.
2009.
Well, that brings me to a point I wanted to raise earlier, which is that your tenure covered two really interesting moments in the intelligence community and the defense community writ large. Because I think if I've got my timing right, you entered during the Cold War, and
Yes.
then your tenure stretches all the way through what you would call like the war on terror, the main first stages of the war on terror, and then you leave in 2009. So you would have overseen two massive geopolitical international events, and B, you would have seen like a major turnover between the sort of operational structures that were built for the first one, evolving to face the second kind of threat. And I wanted to ask you, what was that like? Did you see a lot of change? Were the 90s very calm? Did the structure stay the same?
It was calm for a while. But we realized that things that were second, third, fourth tier became first, second, and third tier. We no longer had a major opponent in the USSR, but we had these non-state actors, they're terrorist organizations. And so it was quite a pivot. I would say we had to pivot from dealing with a bipolar world, us versus the Soviet Union, to a multipolar world, us versus everybody. And so they may not be as powerful as the Soviet Union, but it's asymmetric, definitely asymmetric, because with not having major weapon systems, a terrorist organization could have easily disrupted social life without, dropping bombs on us. They would like explode smaller devices and disrupt social life, and in fact disrupt the confidence of that country in protecting its own citizens. That's the biggest thing that I noticed, was that the United States had to protect its own citizens. We no longer had the ocean separating us. And before, we only had to protect against a threat from ballistic missiles launched by any of, one of the two countries with ICBMs, China and Russia. That's what was our concern, right? So we had to have a nuclear deterrence to prevent that in place. But a nuclear missile sitting in a silo, a Maelstrom Air Force Base, that nuclear missile will not protect you against a lone wolf actor terrorist coming into the country, or a team of terrorists coming into the country to cause mayhem. That missile is useless.
And
right?
so directly
So
to your point, the Department of Homeland Security didn't exist when you started your
It did not.
tenure. Was there a
Yeah.
big reorganization
Yes.
around
The
incorporating that into
functions,
the structure?
right? The functions of the Homeland Security were all over the government. They didn't create new functions. They brought it all under one house and gave them both foreign and a domestic charter. And so there is one component in Homeland Security that is part of the intelligence community, but a lot of it is law enforcement. So, so the parts of Homeland Security that deal with like border are not part of the intelligence community. Though they use intelligence, they don't use CIA intelligence, so we collect foreign intelligence. So in that sense, if we know about counter narcotics is another mission area for CIA. We know about counter narcotics operations going on. We will provide support to those folks in DEA or in Homeland Security, protecting the border against an inflow of narcotics. But we can't operate in the United States unless we tag along with another agency that is authorized to operate. So that gets into a gray area between different authorizations in the community.
Was it interesting to be there during this structural reorganization? Did things
chaos.
Shake loose? It was chaos. Really?
It was chaos. Yeah, because I remember jokingly, a lot of us in my branch were saying, well, we dealt with weapon systems, Chinese and Soviet weapon systems, right? And so what we dealt with were like ballistic missiles. We dealt with surface-to-air missiles, air-to-air missiles, foreign fighter jets, foreign submarines, foreign ships, foreign destroyers and cruisers. What do we do now? Why should we exist? And there was a move in Congress. I believe it was senior senator from New York, Monahan, Senator Patrick Monahan, who actually went back like in the 60s, early 60s, of breaking the CIA into thousands of pieces. He wanted to break up the CIA, and there was like movements in Congress from very senior people in Congress that wanted to break up the CIA, saying that it's a peace dividend. CIA is designed for this bipolar world, primarily targeting the Soviet Union, primarily targeting the People's Republic of China. Now that the Soviet Union doesn't exist, maybe we should get rid of CIA. And you know who were enthusiastic about that? Our colleagues in the other major intelligence centers.
The DIA and the NSA.
Yeah, NSA particularly. I mean, they were thrilled when they heard that, because we were competitors as well as colleagues.
Interesting. And they would have gotten a bunch of assets from the CIA probably if that had happened.
And I had to justify the duplication of effort in my lab. And so like we had a lab that did ELINT, and NSA has a lab that does ELINT. So does DIA and MISIC, the Missile and Space Intelligence Center in Huntsville, Alabama. They have an ELINT lab. NASIC in Wright Pat has an ELINT lab, and Office of Naval Intelligence has an ELINT lab. We all have these ELINT labs. We're all doing and looking at the same signals. We're producing the same intelligence, technical intelligence.
Right.
Congress came by, and I remember a staffer from HIPSI came by, and I had to give them a tour of my lab, and they wanted to know, they were investigating, why is there a duplication of effort? Why are there so many databases dealing with your topic of ELINT? Let's get to the bottom of this. Maybe we can, eliminate a lot of that. But what happened was that we soon realized that we still needed that, because now, even though it's not the Soviet Union, now it's the Russian Federation. But guess what? The Sukhoi Design Bureau didn't go away. McCoy and Gurevich, that produces MiG fighters, they didn't go away. They're now producing the same hardware, military hardware, for the Russian Federation. It's just that they changed flags, but they're still a competitor on the world stage. And so we were kept intact until 9/11. And that was the second time we said, why do we exist? It's not important. Who cares about if Russia has a fighter craft, like the Su-27? flanker. Well, we don't care about that. We care about terrorism. So I had to send people from my ELIT lab who are engineers to do counterterrorism work. They were like, I was told, you will send certain people to certain offices to do counterterrorism. And they went kicking and screaming. And I had officers actually resign. They quit.
Ooh.
From that because they didn't want to do it. So, there was that ramification. I think it's not as bad now. I understand, but back then we were trying to justify our existence, and it was very difficult.
So this is going to get us closer to UFOs. Now, I have a few questions that are in the sort of Venn overlap between, say, CIA and UFOs. And one thing that comes up just top of mind is this. Are you familiar with the Wilson Davis memo about the program? Okay, cool. Yes. That happened, I believe. The sort of seed of that discussion comes up during the post 9/11 reorg, as like Homeland Security is coming in, and there's like an audit, and the programs are changing and moving around, and so there's this chance for exposure of deep state stuff. And Admiral Wilson allegedly, per this memo, bumps into this program while he's doing an audit and gets told, you don't have access to this information. So I just want to put that out there. I don't have a question about it yet. I want to ask you about the cultural scuttlebutt of your time in the CIA and intelligence community more broadly around the subject of UAP for most of your career. Was it kind of an open secret, or was it something that people were interested in, or is it more like it is in the outside world where most people are not that interested and then some people find it fascinating? What was the general vibe around UFOs at the CIA?
Well, I can answer that in general. In the general case, CIA is interested in everything A through Z.
Okay.
And if you look at CIA's website as to the type of skills they're hiring right now, it's A through Z, you name it. And they want somebody who has that academic background, who has that professional experience. Doesn't matter what it is, A through Z. And it could be a carpenter. We hire carpenters. We hire people who know how to do woodworking. Why? Because guess what? We hide things in dead pieces of wood. We hire biologists, not necessarily for the nuclear biochem issue, but biologists who know about animals, because we at one time we actually use dead animals to hide things, disgusting dead animals. You hide a collection system inside a dead animal, and no one picks that dead animal up, right?
Oh my God!
Or even animal droppings. Of the larger animals, we hide things in that, and tree trunks, or in trees and whatnot. So, okay. The point being is that we don't discount any kind of skill set whatsoever, including
if there's
actors,
an expertise somewhere, you want to know about it,
including actors. Because who else knows about makeup? Who else knows about how to play a role?
Yeah.
Who can train an operations officer and how to play a role? An actor can. So
I was going to ask you if
the
you
actors
did that.
can be directors, and this is the way you're supposed to act. You're supposed to, this is your background, and this is what you should be feeling. You should convey these feelings to make yourself look more authentic. So that's just an example of hiring an actor, right? But to get to your specific questions, yes. I would say there was turmoil, there was chaos. And with the reorganization after 9/11, dealing with like Wilson Davis and with Admiral Wilson, I would challenge that he knew nothing about the program. I'm not saying that he's being less than honest, but I would challenge that the director of DIA, who serves as J2, knew nothing about the UFO program. And that's because I happen to know that within DIA, there are people who did look at anomalous events. We looked at anomalous events. They looked at anomalous events. The Air Force did as well. So you have the Defense Intelligence Agency, and within DIA, there are officers from the uniformed services who are intelligence officers representing their service within DIA, as well as civilians in DIA. And they also look at everything from the perspective of what their job is defense, national defense. So they look at everything as, is this a threat? Can this be threatening to me? And that started way back in the 40s and 50s and continued on. So just because there was no Project Blue Book, ostensibly that disappeared on January 1970, the name Project Blue Book disappeared, but the function of Project Blue Book of collecting information about these anomalous events, about these sightings by both government, military, and civilians, that continued throughout.
And I've heard you say in other places, and you've said offline to me, that that continuation is one of the reasons that you've been vocal about this subject in the past few years. You want people to know that that investigation continued.
Right.
Is that
I wanted
right?
people to know that between Blue Book finishing in 1970, January 1970, to the startup of ALSAP, when Senator Reid and Senator Inouye were involved in funding ALSAP, 2007, kicking off 2008. Between those years, if you think that the government did nothing, that is absolutely false. We did a lot of collection. It's more ramped up now, and it's more visible now, but we've never stopped looking at it. But having said that, within CIA, I can say there was no office that primarily looked at UFO, UAP, or NHI. There was no central office. It was scattered throughout. And I think I would say that the primary office, if there was an office, the primary office was the office I was in, the Office of Scientific and Weapons Research. Its predecessor in the 1950s, the Office of Scientific Intelligence, they're the ones that actually started the disinformation campaign. Officers and the Office of Scientific Intelligence proposed that we continue to study this phenomenon, but since civilians are reporting it, we should debunk it as often as possible in any way, shape, or form. And if people come forward, we should get with the news media and cast those people as less than reliable witnesses.
And was that to avert panic, or was it to prevent an attack vector from Russia, say, making people scared of their potential weapons or destabilizing our population? Like, what was the thinking? What was the strategy behind a disinformation debunking campaign?
I think primarily it was to protect our interest in this topic, that we can continue to study this topic at the same time as we do the debunking. It would also encourage people to come forward. We didn't want to debunk that particular witness directly. We wanted to get with the news media to make those type of reports a subject of derision, of jokes. And that's why the news media would roll their eyes and laugh and giggle, when somebody would come forward. They would make it like something silly. At the same time as it's being silly, out in the news media, we can continue to study this and perhaps even contact that witness in some way. And I think that's where the Men in Black legend comes into place.
Interesting.
Contact. What did you see? What did you observe?
You see it as maybe kind of like a cover for a deeper organization then? Am I describing that right? Like the disinformation campaign kept people disinterested so that the intelligence community could do more serious research? Does that sound right?
We do research with, we could be doing serious research without any of that. But it's a two-way street. It's to encourage the idea that there might be UFOs and extraterrestrials, encourage that through Hollywood, through movies, so forth. There were the classic sci-fi period, 1950s. That's the classic period of sci-fi. And it stayed like 1950s sci-fi until Star Trek. And to me, Star Trek was the first serious mass media science fiction show. It actually showed possibilities and it actually explored topics that we already looked at. And so I think it's to encourage the interest of people while allowing the government a hands-off kind of view. So it's a joke. It's nothing serious. So no one in the news media will come to the government and say, "Hey, what's up with this witness? Is this real?" Like now it's happening, right? Now it's happening when the witnesses come forward, whether civilian or government. The news media focuses in on that, and it's no longer a subject of derision. But you still have debunkers, which is fine. You have skeptics. That's fine. It's part of healthy dialogue, in my opinion, to have debunkers and skeptics. It's kind of bounds the problem, and it kind of gives you a objective perspective on what you're seeing or what's being
I'd like
reported.
to see a little more aggressive investigative reporting, but that's sort of a side note. Returning to this question of cultural scuttlebutt, you told me a story that I've also heard you describe elsewhere, which is that during Cold War missile reconnaissance, the CIA basically witnessed some objects that they termed domes of light at the time.
And I would say that primarily first was Air Force was reporting it through. Back then, the National Air and Space Intelligence Center was called the Foreign Technology Division. It went under several names. In the 50s, it was actually called ATIC, ATIC. And then FTD in the 60s and through the 80s, and then eventually became NASIC. But they primarily, since they were looking at air and space, they primarily were the principal reporters of this phenomena within the Air Force. And since they're in the Air Force, when DIA was created in the early 60s, they reported to DIA. So there was some interest there and some reporting there of the phenomenon throughout.
So they're observing, they've got like just some early satellite photos.
No satellites in the 50s,
data.
of course, but they definitely had pilot visuals. And they had ground observations. And like we had with the FA-18s and off the Nimitz, we have Air Force pilots seeing these objects. We had commercial pilots seeing these objects. We had people on the ground seeing these objects. So there's still reporting of that. And there were some investigations going on as well on the ground. For example, the Lani Zamora incident in New Mexico. I mean, that's a classic. It's so classic that CIA on its webpage and its website actually has a web page on how to investigate a UFO, using that as an exemplar. This is the way to do it. They actually did it right. And this is what you should do if you want to investigate UFOs. Nowhere in CIA's official correspondence do they say this is not real. This is fake. Nowhere.
So they started taking it seriously right from jump, basically from the establishment of the intelligence community in 47, or of the CIA in 47.
Well, probably earlier than that, because
through the 50s.
The Magenta craft being recovered, allegedly recovered in 1944 and transferred to the U.S. That needs to be investigated more. I'm sure there are other researchers who are deep diving into that. But there's always been a knowledge of something.
And people have pointed to this foreign technology division as potentially being kind of like tip of the spear for investigating crashed craft, and then like some people have alleged disseminating some of the technology into commercial pipelines. I'm curious what you feel about that.
The FTD, back when it was T2 intelligence during World War II, and later ATIC, and FTD, they had something called FME, foreign material exploitation. And so they were responsible for any material they got of a non-US origin. They were responsible for analyzing that material or that system. So, for example, one of the things they brought over was the HO-229 Horton winged jet aircraft, which, if you look at it, looks very much like our stealth bombers. A winged triangular a winged triangular aircraft. And so they were always involved in that. There was never a time they were not involved in that. I think CIA was involved at a different level, at a national strategic level of finding out if we are seeing this as well in our sky, in our space, if our citizens are seeing it, if our military officers are seeing this. How about Russia? So we are foreign intelligence collections. Let's collect information in the Soviet Union. Are they doing the same? Are they seeing the same things? And they were. They were seeing, and that goes back to what I stated before, that we knew that there were what we would call orbs, or back then was nicknamed domes of light by FDD, that they were accompanying ballistic missile test launches. And the Soviets thought it was us. We thought it was the Soviets. FDD came out with a preliminary report that then was delivered to Congress as a complete report and briefed key legislators back in the day that there's these domes of light. Now, that came out into public parlance because Senator Jesse Helms of North Carolina actually stated about the domes of light being ballistic missile countermeasures. I don't know if he was given permission to say that, but at that time it was classified, but he was briefed on it, of the domes of light. And he briefed that, and he stated, I believe for the New York Times, that they are related to ballistic missile countermeasures by the Soviet Union to disguise their actual reentry vehicles, their warheads, from decoys, that these are decoys.
And this was our hypothesis at the time, but it turned out to be wrong, right? Like we assumed that the Russians were using these as countermeasures. They imagined that we might have been using them as countermeasures, but we found out later that neither side was responsible for these orbs. Is that right?
We know they're orbs that are related to certain satellites that the Soviet Union and Russia deploys. They're called CalSats, calibration satellites. And they're actually large, shiny metallic spheres that these satellites will kick out a few at a time.
So that's a real human technology now.
Yeah, they will orbit, and then that would enable the Soviets to calibrate their radars.
Huh. Okay. But so the domes of... Sorry, go ahead.
But the domes of light were not solid objects. They were energy spheres. Some people call them plasmoids. I don't know what's a good name for it, but light energy was very different. And so we had to determine whether this was some advance like Russian response to Star Wars. So we were looking at directed energy as well as part of Star Wars.
And time-stamping
defense initiative.
We're in the 80s here. You're talking about Star Wars, right? Like the
70s, 80s,
70s, 80s.
Yeah, okay. Because they were the Soviets had an anti-satellite weapon in orbit.
So this must have been relatively common knowledge. The story, just to like recapitulate it, is we're seeing these domes of light. They're seeing these domes of light. Both sides are assuming the other one is responsible. And then both sides figure out neither side is causing these non-physical orbs of light that are appearing around missile testing. So if enough people in the intelligence communities of both countries are aware of this, I'm wondering how that informed just general impressions of the idea of UFOs, like within the intelligence community and specifically the CIA. Like, is there a higher rate of people saying, yeah, there's really something to this when you bring up UFOs, or is it like the general public?
I would say within CIA, depending on the office you're in, you know certain facts to be true, depending on what office you're in. And principally, I mentioned the Office of Scientific Weapons Research. That was the principal office that dealt with the topic. I think other offices may have dealt with the topic, but that one principally was the one because we looked at space. There was a space systems division back in OSWR back in the day. There was a advanced vehicles analysis division back in OSWR back in the day.
Okay.
Defensive systems division, offensive systems division, and there's also a directed energy branch in the defensive systems division. So we were looking at all of that, and some of that would come through in the collection. Now, they determined, this is something that the Soviet Union was developing. We know that, but what's this? This is strange. What is that? Where did that come from? So you go into what is known as the other bin. And that was a bin that I was really tickled that the then Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, in that preliminary analysis report on UAPs, categorized that as, there's this other bin. So that still exists, where the real stuff is at. The other bin is the most interesting bin, because that's the unexplained bin, and that's where I think UAP Task Force and Errol should be looking at, is that other bin. What is this? And particularly, if we're not the only country seeing this, if China's seen it, if Russia's seen it, or even Latin America or other European countries, no matter where you are, I mean, they see these objects.
They
like
must.
Orbs. Yes.
Yeah.
In their space. And so that's what's interest. And so, yeah. And so if you're studying that, that country, and you just say you're a military analyst for a certain country, and as part of your job as a military analyst for that country, you're in the office of, you name the region of the world, right? Could be the office of Near East and South Asian analysis. And part of that is, I think India fell into that. And so if you knew that the Indian Air Force was detecting these, as a military analyst for the Indian Air Force, you're not interested in that. But because the Indian Air Force is interested, that becomes part of your reporting. So that's how it permeated throughout the agency, is that if your job is to do something as your day job, but as part of your day job, as was with me, that you encounter detections of this phenomenon, it becomes that phenomenon becomes part of your day job. That happened to me with radars.
What's the water cooler vibe around stuff that pops up in these SIGINT or ELINT arenas? Like, did people talk about UFOs, or was it still kind of like a verboten subject?
Yeah, no, it wasn't verboten at all. I mean, there are people who talk about UFOs, but there was no UFO office. There was no principal clearinghouse for all UFO information in CIA, other than OSWR was the closest. And even within OSWR, there was no central office, I would say central division or branch that did nothing but UFOs. It was part of their day job if they detected. So still, yeah, I would say there's no clearinghouse throughout the entire U.S. government until UAP Task Force was set up. Before it was OSAP and ATIP, and then UAP Task Force, and now Arrow. That was the central clearinghouse. So I would say that, yeah, before 2007, 2008, there were no offices whose primary responsibility was UFO at all.
I think what I'm trying to get at, and I'll try this one more time, is just like general impression of the people on the front lines.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, general impression. Like I said, you're exposed to it, so it's not like a belief. You just say, this is in my reporting, I'll report it. You don't have to believe it, but it's in your reporting. It's your job as an analyst, for example, to vet that reporting. You look for other sources for that reporting, because you need to gauge the confidence level of your source of information, of the information in the source. So if you look at human reporting, I would say there's always a statement in human reporting about the source. It may not name the source, but it says the source is a credible witness whose past reporting has been extremely reliable and who has known access to the information provided. So you take that as an analyst and say, okay, I can believe this source. And then it said, well, let's see if there's anything in SIGINT. Let's see if that foreign country reported on something within their own government. So there's where signals intelligence comes in. Let's listen in and see if we can collect something in the message traffic that points to the fact that, they saw something, And then if you have human sources, you can say maybe there's someone higher up in their government who's in a position to know in their defense ministry or in their defense industries that might know something. So, I mean, you set it all out. Or if you hear something landed or something crashed, okay, there you get, imagery intelligence. Let's fly over that and see is there any kind of unusual activity on the ground that a foreign country would then marshal its forces to go recover something?
Mm-hmm.
That's got a signature that you can see that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, what are all these flatbed trucks doing here?
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere, and what are they picking up? And where are they going? See, so that's part of that intelligence process. So within CIA, you talk about our impressions. It's all
Mm-hmm.
intelligence. It's all intelligence. It's all information. It's all information first. It doesn't become intelligence until you process and analyze it. And so
Yeah, go ahead.
So there you said, well, now I believe that this is real.
Mm.
So that might change your perspective, on something. Wow.
Yeah, what I'm coming from is like outside in the regular world, people when they hear about this stuff, they just assume, somebody with better information knows more about this than I do. Like, it's probably a secret military project. But if you're the CIA and you're looking at data or like even a picture from a satellite,
right?
You have the access to that bleeding edge information.
Right.
You know it's not a secret U.S. plane.
Something we're working on.
Right. So does that mean that there's like a higher rate of understanding of the UFO phenomenon within the intelligence community?
I wouldn't say understanding. I would say the high rate of observation that there's something going on.
Awareness that we're getting this anomalous data.
A higher rate of awareness. It was a higher rate of understanding. We would have no need for any of these other organizations like UAP Task Force or Arrow to exist.
Because we would know what was
because
going on.
We don't know all of it.
Okay.
Now, we know, there are people who know what we're working on. There are advanced technologies.
Yeah.
And I would credit our scientists and engineers that not all things incredible came from NHI.
Yeah.
That we have some really smart people who have developed things.
Sure. And at every stage in the pipeline, we've had something that was like 20 or 30 years ahead of what the public knew about.
That's what we do. And so, like lithium ion batteries were developed at CIA before they were in watches.
Pretty cool.
The early watches. We developed the technology to detect breast cancer and mammograms.
Wow.
But it wasn't designed for that. It was change detection over a certain area on the Earth. We needed to detect if there are any changes in that area over the Earth. And the technology that did the detection was then given to the National Institutes of Health. And they seeded the medical community with that. So that kind of thing.
So along these lines, I wanted to ask if you thought the CIA would be the kind of place where people did know about the program to the extent that there is one program. Like you said, there's no dedicated CIA office.
No.
But like, would the director of the CIA be likely to be read into a deeper UFO program?
He or she will certainly be eligible. Notice I said not read in, but eligible will be read in. They have to ask.
They have to ask
for it.
And they would have to know who to ask.
Well, every time there's a change in administration, there's a briefing team set up, a transition team and a briefing team. And the briefing team, because of the virtue of the office held, you don't have to get a polygraph and a background investigation. If you're nominated and by the president to hold a certain office, I'll use the Director of National Intelligence. If you're nominated to be Director of National Intelligence and the appropriate Senate committees approve of that, and it goes to the president, and then you're appointed that by the president, you are eligible to know. And there's a briefing team that will come and give you everything because you are now authorized to know everything. You are in charge of the entire access programs. You know all of the operations programs. You know everything. And for those things you don't know, you're eligible to know. And so ask about it.
Okay, so theoretically, the ODNI, the director of the CIA, the head of the Pentagon, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, all these people would theoretically have need to know access to the toppity top secret programs if they ask for them. Is that right?
I would say need to know is a dicey thing because if they can do their jobs without needing to know,
then they don't necessarily.
They don't necessarily are told. But if they ask, because of the virtue of the office, I find it hard to believe that a president would be told, sorry, Mr. and Ms. President, sorry, you cannot know this. That to me is so foreign to my way of thinking of the way we deal with the executive office of the president.
I should ask you a general. Oh, go ahead.
All clearances. The president can give you or take away a clearance.
Okay. So then theoretically, they should have access to this information. So I've heard you say elsewhere, you are not a proponent of the idea that presidents have been largely excluded from information around UFOs.
I am absolutely not. Now, do they know every detail of, let's say, this is a theoretical. Let's say that there is a program to reverse engineer an NHI sourced craft. All right. A president does not have the time to get into the details of the logistics, the facilities, the nitty-gritty of that program. But are they told that an effort exists to develop advanced technologies, extraordinary advanced technologies? That's one level. By the way, this extraordinary advanced technology was recovered in this part of the world. That's another level. And that advanced technology, inside that advanced technology, we found a non-human being. That's another level. So it can ramp up, right? So at the base level, you just know a program exists to exploit advanced technologies from extraordinary sources, extraordinary capabilities from extraordinary sources. You know that much. But as far as more details, you'll have to ask. You have to ask. I don't think it. Let's put it this: they won't volunteer that information. But because of the virtue of the office, you're eligible for that information.
And likewise, that would apply to a head of a Pentagon or a head of the CIA or a head of the DNI.
You're responsible as head of an agency for that agency's budget. And you want to know where everything's spent, and you have staffs, counting pennies. And if they see a program, they will want to know about it. I know this to be a fact because I was in a transition as the ODNI was set up. The first ODN, the Director of National Intelligence, was Ambassador John Negroponte. And he wanted to know, and he served in previous administrations before, and he wanted to know, right now, I'm the DNI. I want to know what the entire intelligence community is doing. Hold meetings together. Invite everyone to this meeting, subject matter experts, and come up with exactly what you're doing. And as I represented the National Counterproliferation Center in this particular function. So I got spreadsheets landing on my desk of cryptic program names, the amount of money budgeted for that program, and who's doing the program, and the contractor involved. Now, did I get exactly what that program was about just by looking at the program name? No, but I'm exposed to all of it. And I saw that there were many, many, many programs, which the civilian were called black programs. Inside it, they're more like shades of gray programs, because you'll know something about it just knowing that who's doing it. If there's in the civilian world, if there's a black program by the Navy, right? Inside, I would know, it's like a darker shade of gray. It's the Navy. I know it has something to do with ships and submarines, things that the Navy is interested in. And it's some kind of Navy collection program. And so I know that this collection program is either collected from ships or Navy, naval aviation, or Navy surface or subsurface, more likely subsurface. right? And so I would know that they're doing something interesting, subsurface wise. Now, because you're in the Navy, does that mean that you would know about that? I wasn't in the Navy when I learned about it, but I was in the Navy before, and I knew enough about the Navy, working with the Navy in my job at CIA, that they were doing things under the sea. In that meeting, there was a commander, an O5, a commander. I think O5 is commander, yeah. But the commander, this woman who's commander, did not know about the program. And she
This
asked,
undersea program?
this undersea program. She asked, what is this program? Because the only thing she saw was NSP.
Which stands for Navy
National
Special Program?
Navy Special
national.
Program.
Okay.
Navy Special. That's the actual program name. I can say that because it leaked by a senior CIA officer. So I assumed that he had permission to leak it. And so Navy Special Program, it was a very secret black program in the Navy called NSP, dealing with submarines. This woman, who's the commander, did not know. She asked, what is this? And she was embarrassed to hear, oh, it's a Navy program. And she showed up to the meeting in her Navy uniform as a commander and didn't know about a Navy program. And somebody else from some other agency who was not in the Navy, civilian, told her, oh, it's a Navy program. And I knew it was a Navy program as well. So talk about, she's eligible to know what it's about because she's fulfilling a function in that group under the direction of the DNI, as I was. And so she was eligible to know. But when she walked into that meeting, she didn't know what it was. So same with seniors, you're eligible to know, but you have to ask.
Okay, so let's go right at this. One of the harder things to process from the outside of the intelligence community and from the outside of the UFO world is this idea that there might be a secret ongoing program to study UFOs that is so secret that we've never seen any documentation proving that it exists. But decade after decade, we've heard leak after leak from person after person saying, yeah, there is something like this going on, but we still don't have, all these years later, a smoking gun to prove it.
And you will never get that. You will never get that because exploitation is not a science project. We exploit in order to build something that we can use ourselves. All right. So what we exploit will provide the United States with a strategic advantage over our adversaries, present and future. And because of that, will we show the world what we have? No. And so I would dissuade the UAP community in civilian land, stop wondering whether you're going to get any information about the so-called alien reproduction vehicles or any such thing. Because if it provides the United States with a strategic advantage, it will remain a secret. And I personally support that secrecy. I do not support revealing what we have done with NHI technology. Now, having said that, I do support revealing that there is NHI technology to exploit. I think we can reveal the fact of information, the fact that NHI technology exists and NHI beings exist without compromising what we did with that technology, which should remain in the hangars because we might need it sometime in the future. Okay, so that's what I support. So, there's a knowledge that there is a program, but as far as details as to what we did with it, that's where the compartments come in.
So do you have a pretty high confidence that we've got some kind of reverse engineering program?
Yes. And the high confidence comes from what I've stated before in prior interviews, was that there wasn't a working group for orbs that the intelligence community held, sponsored by the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, at their St. Louis facility, St. Louis, Missouri. It's called NGA West. There was, for a period of time, an actual group looking at orbs. And as part of that, I stated before, I sent a few engineers, two of my engineers, and one of the engineers had a document sent to him, pouched to him, that he was supposed to put in a safe that I got for them, that I had no combination for, because I wasn't cleared for the contents of that safe. Yet as branch chief, I signed the check to buy that safe or transfer that safe from the General Services Administration. So I got them a safe with a dial and everything. So I had a combination dial, but I didn't know the dial. They had all kinds of documents in there that I could not get into because I couldn't open the safe. And they were supposed to take out documents and securely and make sure that no one else can see those documents. But this engineer, Bob, left it on the desk, face front, and on the cover of that was what I stated before, UFO propulsion systems. It was a publication. It was thick. It was a thick publication, not a 10 or 12-page DIRD, Defense Intelligence Reference Document, which is basically terms of reference, a white paper. This was a publication someone worked on UFO propulsion systems and how they worked, a publication. Did they make that up? No. The agency that published that published it in a compartment I did not have. Bob and my other engineer, Allen, 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 were read in. And they knew what that propulsion system was all about. So they were exposed to the propulsion system. How do you write a publication like that, a real thick one, without having knowledge of a propulsion system in a UFO? It actually said UFO on it.
Yeah. I guess to push, I'm hearing skeptical listeners in my brain right now, so I should give them some voice. Two sort of counter explanations that I could imagine. One would be using UFO as a term for basically secret human technology. And the other would be that this was some kind of like disinformation, internal, maybe even hoax campaign.
You do not. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've heard that from another one that someone released trying to say that there's a hoax within the Air Force to make junior Air Force.
We should talk about that.
I think that's BS. But no, you do not perpetrate a hoax inside the CIA to fool other CIA officers. That is dangerous because we need all the information we can to do our jobs. And you do not hoax information. You don't hoax something, you hide it through the compartmentation. So yeah, why hoax something if you're only reading certain people into it that need to do their jobs as part of this working group to provide an answer to policymakers, right? There's no hoax. We don't make things up.
And what do you think about the idea that they could use UFO as a sort of a fake out name for human technology?
For civilians, for you, yes. I thoroughly believe that.
Yeah.
I know that has some truth to it because of our U2 program. And what I was told about the U2 program was that they're silver when they were being tested. Silver. They're flying at 70,000 feet. They were actually subsonic. They were supersonic. They were flying at like 500 miles per hour or below the speed of sound. Silver at 70,000 feet, streaking across the sky over the continental U.S. in broad daylight. Why? Because the cameras only worked in broad daylight. We didn't have night vision cameras in 1955. We had optical cameras on these craft, on these airplanes, flying at 70,000 feet. People in the mid-50s were reporting UFOs.
It was a big decade.
We did not discourage that, but we wanted to know what they saw. So we sent people to ask them, what did you see? CIA officers actually showed up with some of these witnesses, with Air Force credentials, even though they weren't in the Air Force. We were allowed to have credentials for everyone else to do our jobs.
In order to get reports about what witnesses saw.
Yeah. And back then, we were allowed to do that.
That's not how it works
operate
anymore.
that domestically. There's
Okay.
very little domestic operations anymore. There's limited domestic operations in the United States, but it's very special. But back then, before the Senate and House committees investigating the CIA in the mid '70s, the Church and Pike committees investigating CIA. Before that, we had some freedom to operate in the U.S. And so they would ask them, "What did you see?" All right, and they didn't discourage them from not speaking out. They just want to know, what did you see? Because we want to know what our aircraft look like from the ground.
Right. You want to get witness reports of the U-2 plane, basically.
Yeah. And so what we did was that we knew the flight path of all of our aircraft, like the U-2, the A-12 Oxcart. And when people report seeing things, sure enough, the reports would come from where the aircraft were flying in the sky.
So basically, there was in fact an active engagement of the idea of UFOs as a bit of a cover for the U-2 program.
You saw UFOs. We just want to know what they saw. If they believe they saw UFOs, so much the better.
And within the civilian world and within the skeptical world, this piece of evidence is really important. Like, people consider this basically proof that all UFOs are fake, that like all UFOs are secret military intelligence operations, which is why it's extremely important to me that very early versions of the intelligence communities researched these things. And like the first head of the CIA, Admiral Hillenkotter, said, no, they're not ours and they're not Russia. They have to be somebody because they're intelligent. That's really important.
And of course, back then, they had Roswell craft and they had the Magenta craft, and maybe they had other technology that were recovered back in the day. So he may have said that with some knowledge,
some actual firsthand information.
Yeah.
So your strong feeling is that we do in fact have some craft. Looping back a little bit, you feel your engineers were read into this program that is working on these craft?
Oh yeah, because I was offered that same ticket, as we say. I refused the ticket. I didn't want to know. I already thought in myself, okay, we have an actual UFO, and we were able to examine it, to study it, to analyze it, and we have a report based on that analysis. And here's that publication. So we have something. So I was satisfied. And to preface that, don't forget, by then, I've a lifelong experiencer and believer who've attended on my own dime, at my own expense, not officially, not for CIA, but for me. I attended UFO conferences. I listened to Art Bell coast to coast, as did some of my CIA colleagues would. So there was that interest, about the topic. So yeah, I was pretty convinced that that we did have something. But I would dissuade people from believing that internally there's a campaign to hoax or do anything like that. To have hazings, like was allegedly reported that the Air Force conducted. I would discourage that because it doesn't seem true to the culture I lived in, that we would do something like that. We will simply not tell you about something that we worked on. It's simple as that. We don't need to hoax. Why hoax something? Because then that will make you become aware of something that, let's say I have no interest in UFOs, and you're coming at me telling me that, about this hoax. All of a sudden I'm going to think, why? Why are you telling me that unless there's something you're hiding? It's counterproductive to do that. And inside the intelligence community, you have trained intelligence analysts and trained intelligence operations officers. You just don't, it's very difficult to pull a fast one over your colleagues like that. We just don't do that. It's dangerous because we need ground truth, and we always seek ground truth for everything we do.
So as somebody who was interested in this subject from way back, and as somebody who has had personal experiences with them, did you in the course of your intelligence career attempt to get some more information for yourself from colleagues or from other programs around? And do you feel like at the end of your 25 years with the CIA that you knew more about the situation than you did going in?
I never looked for anything. And it seems like, wow, if I was a CIA, I would be, you just don't do that. I did it because it was part of my day job, because I saw in the analytic accounts that I had with Russian radars, I saw that the Russian radars were detecting. Therefore, I was going to study exactly what the Russian radars were detecting, because it was part of my knowledge of how that radar worked. What are the capabilities of the radar? Oh, this radar can detect these kinds of objects. That's interesting. What is it about the radar that allow the detection of these kinds of objects? So it's not that I'm going to look into the object itself. I never really did that. The only exception was that I looked into the MK Ultra program at CIA. And so I did go into the archives, the historic archives, to look into the remote viewing, the MK Ultra program, which eventually led to the remote viewing program. It's all about behavior modification. It's about consciousness expansion. It's about human potential, those kind of areas. And so I did look at that on my own. As far as the remote viewing program, I have people come and tell me that it actually existed.
I heard you share a story on this topic about a remote viewer who was tasked with viewing the far side of the moon and came back in a permanently altered state from that assignment. Is that a story that was passed to you within the intelligence community while you were checking out the MK Ultra world?
Now I have to protect my own sources now. And I would say that it is a credible intelligence community source. I didn't know that when I was in CIA, but afterwards I got some information about that. And in fact, I believe Ingo Swann may have said something about that as well.
It is a story that's out there.
Yeah. I would give it a medium to high confidence, because I don't have source information. I have second-hand information, not first-hand information about that. But the people who know are people who have first-hand information.
Okay, so let's use this as an entree to one of the harder subjects, maybe the hardest thing we'll try to talk about here today, which is information about alien biologic DNA and any potential hybrid beings or research on hybridized DNA. This is a topic that you've discussed a little bit recently.
Right.
Obviously, it's a hot subject.
I could talk about that because it happened in an unclassified environment. And the source of my information was Gerald K. Haynes, the CIA historian at the time. And it was sponsored by DS&T office, Director of Science and Technology, Office of the Chief Scientist. So I attended that meeting, and that was talked about. And it was not a classified briefing. And so,
and in the context of this meeting, the historian was explaining that the CIA had been interested in hybrid DNA and had been researching
DNA.
Families, alien DNA specifically.
And that led to an interest in certain families with alien DNA.
That is fascinating. And that this program would be over decades? Is that the implication of the historian's report?
The historian said that I don't know if the actual DNA was examined, but the interest occurred after World War II, without going into details of what year. But if you look at after World War II and knowing what we know about the biologics, according to Mr. Grush, the magnetic craft had a biologic entity in it. And also there's the alleged Roswell beings on board the craft that were recovered. Just based on that, you know that there was some access to non-human DNA that was of interest. And we didn't sequence the human genome until much later, but parts of it were sequenced prior. And in fact, one of the pushbacks I got when I first stated that was, oh, that's a lie because we didn't know about DNA until the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
No, we knew about DNA in the mid 1800s. We knew that there was something called DNA. We just did not sequence it. We could not sequence the DNA to look at all the parts of the DNA that we do now.
Okay.
But we knew the structure of the strands, of helical strands, and the protein structure. We knew all that from decades ago, before that. So there was interest in studying that in certain humans, certain families, I was told.
That's so interesting. So yeah, and go ahead.
No, and so that's the extent of that. So I found that to be fascinating.
And the non-classified aspect of it is also really
non-classified,
interesting. That's a historian of the CIA has this information that basically the CIA was looking into DNA of certain families and somehow like trying to cross compare that with any DNA that we would have had from recovered biologics.
Right. And that interest were families in the United States, Northeast, he said. The Northeast United States. So
that is also fascinating.
So I don't think that study can be conducted nowadays because he's a historian. He'll look back at the history of it. But, I mean, there's like, you can't collect DNA from an individual legally without the individual permission.
Mm-hmm.
I would think, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're still doing that. I know they try to collect DNA in areas in the Middle East. Back then, it was associated with something to do with hunting for bin Laden. There was a program that was a controlled access program back then that
interesting.
The CIA director, I think it was John Brennan, made it declassified.
Okay.
That we actually looked at, we're collecting DNA, writing on the back of a vaccine program. So as part of the vaccine program, we wanted to collect DNA, probably from the hypodermic syringe.
Great. Not like we need more conspiracies about vaccines.
But that one is, you can look that up, and that's actually been released by CIA as being something. So so it's not unusual.
So we do every now and then.
To be interested in DNA, but this is foreign DNA, which is in CIA's charter. But I would say CIA collecting DNA of American citizens, I don't think that's allowed.
Probably
I
not.
Seriously doubt that there's no way, shape, and form you can get that through because lawyers have to approve every operation in CIA.
So while we're still in the hybrid zone, you also have alleged that you have a classified source, basically a source that you couldn't share that gave you some more information about the nature of our understanding of hybrid DNA or alien DNA. Am I in the ballpark there?
You're in the ballpark, yes. You're in the ballpark.
And what was the context of that conversation? Were you talking about biologics? Were you talking about like a crossover?
In general. Yeah, UAP, NHI in general. Just a general conversation that came forward, particularly about me, because I was interested in myself, having the background I did with my experiences, and also my ancestral background of having my great-grandmother was a full-blooded Cherokee. And I was told that Cherokee heritage figures prominently in experiencers in a certain database.
That's fascinating. Would you like to talk a little bit about some of your experiences now? Because that seems like a
since I brought it up,
it's
lifelong experiences. It's I was essentially say that I don't know why. I would think every experiencer would ask, why me? And certainly back then, I didn't know. I didn't associate it with anything. I just said, well, that's interesting. I don't know what's all this leading to, But I had an interest in space because the space program was first starting. I was only 4 years old when Sputnik went up. And of course, when the NACA became NASA, when NASA was first stood up from an older organization, I believe started in 1915 NACA, which was in more civilian aviation. And then it became NASA during the space age. And so I was always interested in space. I was always interested in science fiction movies dealing with space. I wanted to be an astronomer. And so that was my interest. But I didn't correlate it to like directly to that I was chosen as an experiencer. Things that make sense now to me as an adult, looking back on it. To me, it was just things that happened to me as a kid.
You know, I've also heard you say in other contexts that you have had a feeling of not being from here.
Belonging. I've always had that feeling of not belonging on the planet. And the more I got into astronomy, the more I felt that. When I got my first telescope, my parents got me, I believe, for Christmas. When I went out in the cold winter, I think I was 7 years old when I got the telescope. So that would place it in the winter of 1960, the Christmas of 1960, 61. When I went out with my telescope, I just felt like, wow, there's a lot of interesting things out in space. And I found the Andromeda Galaxy, and that's when I realized, when I saw the Andromeda Galaxy, I said, wow, that's a whole another galaxy. And I knew about galaxies because my parents would bought me astronomy books. And I read them cover to cover, memorized everything I could. And I just felt like, yeah, here I am, this kid with a telescope looking up. I wonder if there's another kid with his telescope looking back at me, wondering who's there. And I felt like I don't belong here. I belong out there. I belong in space. And I think kids back then all wanted to be astronauts or work for NASA, right?
Okay.
That was the thing. I mean, space program. I mean, now we barely blink an eye, you know, when SpaceX launches astronauts or NASA launches astronauts to the space station. We barely give it a second thought, right? Back then, launching humans into space was a big deal. And it was all wrapped up in national security because who did it first?
Russia.
Sputnik first.
Yeah.
Yuri Gagarin first. It was a space race with national security implications. And so that was a great interest to everyone where, you know, black and white TV back then. In second grade, we all gathered in this one room that had the one black and white TV, and we watched the launch of Alan Shepard on the first Mercury space capsule. And that was a big deal. He only went up for like a suborbital flight. He landed in the Atlantic Ocean. He didn't even go into orbit. But that was such a big deal. And with Gus Grissom and especially with John Glenn orbiting, such a big deal back then. Right. So, I mean, that's why I was interested in space, but I didn't associate UFOs with NASA's space program. I didn't associate UFOs with my experiences immediately right there. I just thought there was like a weird experience that my mother said I never had.
Right. So maybe you're alluding to this. You had one of your earliest memories, as I've heard you describe it, maybe your earliest is arriving at this kind of old timey hospital building and
house. It's actually a house. Yeah.
It was
Victorian
a house
style house.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a recurring thing. Could have been a dream, maybe, but what a strange dream it is to be led into this house and be examined, undressed and examined, and possibly injected with something, and have that occur multiple times.
And then your mother, as you just said, basically disconfirmed that as an event.
Yeah, never took you to any such place.
Right.
And then before that, when I was 5 years old, I saw my first craft, a silver craft, rising above the forest line. I talked about. And
you described that your companions at the time saw nothing.
My cousins and our playmates didn't see anything. I saw it.
Fascinating. And then there are two other big sort of points of this landscape to mention. One is you have a direct encounter in Washington, D.C., I think, with a being in the middle of the night. I think it was DC, right? It was your condo.
My reptilian friend, reptilian-like friend. Different from, now, to preface that, I've had encounters with other NHI that were hooded and caped.
And those
And
you felt positive about. Those
felt
were
positive. This one I did not like. I just sensed an aggression about this particular being, some
and this was the
aggressive
middle of
behavior.
the night. And you
Middle of the
did you
night.
engage in a physical altercation?
Yes.
And I believe you said you woke up with claw marks or some kind of scratching.
On this arm, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And then following this, you experienced waking up and seeing sort of like hazy cloud of something with sparkles.
Green hazy mist with sparkles in it. And looking at that, I got that very safe, protective feeling. The message was that it's there to protect me.
And then there's one more fascinating data point here, which is on the way out of your intelligence service. As a part of a medical examination, a team found an incision and some debris up your nostril, removed the debris, and then classified whatever that data was, and you were unable to get
my understanding now,
about
looking into it, is that all medical records are classified, not just mine, and not because they took something out of me. All of our records are classified, and you have to basically request your medical records. What I did was I did request the medical records through a waived waived HIPAA.
Okay.
Waived the HIPAA request, and then provided CIA with the name, address, and other biographic information about a physician so they can look up the physician. It's a legitimate physician. For example, the MPI number, that is a number that all physicians have, sort of like a serial number that all physicians are given, the MPI number. So I provided MPI number, the birthplace and birth date of this physician, a social security number of the physician, and the full name of the physician. And so that record was, I believe, was transferred. I never got any feedback from CIA.
But there's like a physician CIA confidentiality agreement, so the physician can't share that information with you, but they have access to it. Is that right?
I'm not sure how that works, but I never made the effort to find out whether he got it. So be that as it may, I actually wasn't curious what was in it. I thought it'd be interesting just to see for myself. But then I go, well, I'm not really concerned because I don't have those nosebleeds anymore. The incision was repaired, and I just thought it was interesting that they felt this one particular physician was so interested he called a colleague for a nosebleed. I mean, I just felt that was kind of strange. That one physician could have taken care of this nosebleed by himself. He could have taken care of it, but for some reason, when you have two physicians looking into your nostril and going, that's interesting. And, the other physician also asked, have you ever had a surgical incision? No. The fact that it was a surgical incision that I don't remember, they insisted it was a surgical incision. Someone operated and made a surgical incision, and that was the source of the bleeding. And there was something there. And so the fact that they removed it and so forth, I thought that was interesting. And I try to get my records on the day I checked out of the Office of Medical Services. We run around with a checkout sheet, making sure we don't owe library fines at the library or all this stuff. Security checkout, get debriefed, all my compartments. Office of Medical Services, they signed off on it. And that's when I asked for my medical records. So sorry, we can't give it to you. It's classified. And I found documentation that certainly it is classified, that there's some level that could give me information. If it's related to a ailment that I have now, for example, I develop an ailment, and I think I may have caught that ailment due to some work I did at CIA, maybe in a foreign country, then they can release limited information related to that particular ailment. So they can do some release of information, but they're not going to wholesale hand over my medical records because
there are some.
Well, I got
classified as a general matter, yeah.
Right, because I got inoculations, vaccinations prior to traveling to certain countries. And the fact that I was in this country should not be known in public. So they can't They say, well, you're going to this, and the medical record tells you where you're going and what inoculations you need for that country.
So it makes sense to protect this information as a general matter. Yeah. And this does come up in other parts of the UAP conversation because there are people who have been exposed to like radiation while they were doing crash retrieval or just like in the course of some normal investigation. And there are stories about people having a hard time getting access to their medical records as a result.
They actually passed, the anomalous health incidents. It's passed in the law that the government has to provide health insurance coverage for AHI.
Oh, good. Wow, I didn't know that.
Before they weren't covered. That's Mark Polymeropoulos, a CIA officer, who was a champion of that for everyone in government who served in any capacity that they experienced these AHI incidents.
That's been more important than ever with the Havana syndrome of the recent years. Let's zoom out and put some of this stuff together. I think I just want to say as a side note, I'm so grateful for you talking about this stuff. I get the feeling that as a former member of the intelligence community, you get a lot of pressure from the UAP community to sort of like deliver the goods, spill the beans.
Right.
We want to like
right. And
information from you.
And if you want the beans spilled, CIA website, you join up. So a lot of job openings at CIA now, believe it or not.
Interesting.
The job openings in the intelligence community, they're refocusing what CIA should be doing and the rest of intelligence should be doing, what the ODNI should be doing. And so they're refocusing on that. And so there are job openings available. See if you qualify. U.S. citizen, 18 years or over, no felony records. No felonies, 18 years and over.
You got a shot.
You got a shot. You got a shot. Yeah.
So I guess the two big things I'd love to cover before we move on from this conversation are one, like, what is your big picture image of the situation? Like, what's your working model of like the situation as it exists with NHI, with the government's understanding of them? Okay. And then two is, what do you think we should be doing as a group, as humanity, both inside and outside of these organizations to deal with the situation as it actually stands? So question one, what do you think's going on with the NHI? And then question two, how do you think we should be responding as a public? And I'm talking here not just about like the secret organizations and the military organizations, but like civilians. What should we be working on to adjust our society to confront this reality?
Very heavy questions. Let me paraphrase Jim Semivan.
Okay.
He's the other CIA officer who's out in the public domain. An interviewer asked Jim Semivan about my comment about hybrids, same as what you just asked me about hybrids, and I provided generally the same answer. And the interviewer asked Jim Semivan whether or not Jim believed me. And Jim pretty much hemmed and hawed. He's not going to be able to tell you what he knows. But what he did say was this: my comment, it makes total about hybrids. It makes total sense to me, but I cannot tell you why. All right, like go with that. So Jim Semivan said that hybrids makes total sense to him, but he can't tell you why. What does that imply that Jim Semivan knows? He knows something perhaps that's in a compartment. I don't know. I have no idea. But it's a very telling thing that he said. I can't tell you why I believe John's story about hybrids. Mm-hmm. He could have very simply said, no, that's just BS. There's no such thing. But he didn't say that. So it leaves open the possibility.
So we got a building block there.
Right, that's a building block.
Are real.
I give you another building block. The other building block is about something that Jim was exposed to. He was briefed into when he was a DS&T contractor, Director of Science and Technology. This is after he retired. I believe he retired in 2007. So after he retired and was a contractor or consultant for the CIA Director of Science and Technology, He said that people came to him and talked to him about a certain program and how they were doing experiments here, there, and everywhere and elsewhere about this program and the results they got from this program. And it completely floored him to the point that he was at a loss for words. He couldn't believe it. He said, another telling thing. Remember, keep in mind, hybrids, I believe John, what John said about hybrids makes sense, but I cannot tell you why. About what he was briefed, he said that that this program that he was exposed to was somewhat related, not directly related, but associated with UAP, but not directly. Okay. And then he said it was a fantastic thing, that it was science fiction almost, what he was exposed to. And it left him with for 3 months. He was not himself for 3 months. 3 months. He said that actually in this interview. And his wife, Deb, is a psychologist or a psychiatrist, is a mental health professional, a doctor who is a mental health professional. And she noticed that he had this stare, like what war veterans would call, combat veterans would call the 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah.
You're not wholly there, you're somewhere else. And he had that for 3 months. It's something fantastical. All right. Now, what was that about? He didn't say. But I think it has to do something about time. And I never questioned Jim, and I never asked him, and I'm not going to. So I'm not going to ask him about, Jim, what you said in that interview, was it about the time thing? I'm not going to ask him that. This is my speculation. I'm conjecturing that. So the hybrids, he kind of somewhat said, yeah, there's something to that. I'm inserting the time thing because that's something that I heard about. Again, something I heard about was there's a time aspect to this entire program. So putting that together, hybrids and time, I'm wondering, this is pure speculation. I do not know.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know, but perhaps, let's take a wild ass guess, a wag, that there are time-traveling human hybrids from the future, riding consciousness control craft, visiting ancestors, us, from their distant past, and micro-adjusting the course of human endeavor for a better or different outcome than what their reality is. And not making wholesale adjustments that will break the paradox, but micro-adjusting. And it's almost like an adjustment bureau, the movie Adjustment Bureau.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting movie because the reality changed, and your new reality is what you remember to be the reality. So what I know is to be the past, what I read in the history books, I can go to the library and pick out a history book and read it. Could that be something that was already micro-adjusted? And in my perspective, this has happened long ago, but it was adjusted. That I think that we all think that certain things have happened that may have been adjusted to happen, and it becomes part of our reality. And when there's a glitch in that causes the Mandela effect of people having different stories about Mandela.
And they remember the Berenstain Bears being spelled differently, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Could that be a glitch in that? But I do not know if there are time-traveling human hybrids. I do not know that. I do not know if it comes from the far future or any future. And I do not know if they ride consciousness-controlled craft. And I don't know if they're visiting us from their distant past. And I do not know if they're micro-adjusting the course of human endeavor for better or different outcome. I don't know that. But if you ask me, John, what is your personal theory of everything? That would be my personal theory of everything. And I'm happy with that. And I don't encourage anyone to believe it, because come up with your own personal theory of everything. It's just as valid as anyone else's. just
It's
as valid.
interesting. I've heard you say before that you were noodling with the idea that NHI predated humans on Earth, that they've
Yeah,
been here for a long time, maybe set
yeah,
themselves up as gods for us as our
yeah.
civilizations evolved, that they maybe don't all agree with each other, and some of them might be protecting us from other
Right.
versions who don't like us as much. And I was wondering how those ideas intersect for you. Do you feel more strongly about the time traveling hypothesis or about the like crypto terrestrial hypothesis? Or how do you feel about extraterrestrials in this mix?
Exactly. I think I do not know this, but this is my personal theory of everything.
Mhm.
Absolutely no evidence for this, but I do believe that humans in the future might be aware of the fact that there were like extraterrestrial or non-humans in the past messing with the
Mm,
human history,
yeah.
messing with the
Okay.
way human development, the way we
Uh
came
huh.
out, including the fact that they may have, in some way, seeded our civilization to some degree,
Okay. Uh huh.
and that um, these these beings are still here on the planet.
The extraterrestrial
Yeah,
beings.
and they may not be extraterrestrial; they may be terrestrial. That
Okay.
that we're the extraterrestrials. That this is their planet, and we were brought in for some purpose to do something, and we were given enough leeway, free will, to develop our own civilization, and it was guided by these other beings who set themselves up as gods and goddesses, which we worship. And to think about it, and to touch on religion a little bit, no one questions a person's religious beliefs. People believe in a God that they cannot see, and Jesus, whom they never met, but or read about, and angels that they cannot see, but read about. Back then, there were witnesses of Jesus, there were witnesses who saw angels, and there were people who felt themselves to be in the presence of a God and developed belief systems around that. No one questions that, right? These unseen beings are not human who uh, have such an impact on our daily lives through organized religions. No one questions that. But when you say that God may have been NHI, Jesus may have been NHI, and angels may have been an etheric form of NHI, uh, people attack you. But yet they want to attack a person's religious beliefs. So I came up with, all right, if you want to attack a person because they believe in UAP and NHI, which they can't prove exists, and they can't, they may have seen it, but they can't produce the evidence, let that be faith-based ufology.
Hmm.
Faith-based. I have
Hmm.
faith in this. So don't attack me for my faith that what I don't know, but could possibly be, is real. Religion is very real in people's personal lives. It's very real. It guides them in their personal lives. No one attacks that. There are other people who believe in ancient gods and goddesses coming back, but they get attacked. Why? Why attack them? You have no basis. Of course, they don't have any evidence. Sure, that I know they don't have any evidence, but guess what? You don't have any evidence that any of the organized religions on the planet, based on their myths and legends, are real, right? Yet it's part of human history. So perhaps this is also part of human history that maybe we might discover in the future. So that's my personal theory of everything.
It's interesting that it's a very common story in basically every human religion that there are powerful beings from the sky and they're telling us what to do about various
Yep.
things in various ways through various times. That is a kind of evidence about a kind of story.
Right.
So, do you just like chunking down a little bit here, do you feel really strongly about the idea of some kind of non-human intelligence operating around Earth contemporaneously? Like, do you feel that NHI are here now with a high confidence?
Um, I would say yes, because I encountered them. Simple as that. I think any experiencer would say, yes, they exist because I've encountered them. Others encountered the craft. They've seen the craft. I've seen orbs. I've seen a structured craft and I've seen orbs. So I had those encounters. So I say yes.
Okay, so we don't know if they're time travelers. We don't know if they're aliens. We don't know if they're crypto-terrestrials, but we're pretty sure that something intelligent creatures that aren't human,
something lives with us,
are here. Yeah.
Yes. Something lives with us.
At least some of them seem to have some technological capacity because they're operating these craft, which we have good reason to believe we have started reverse engineering, at least in America, probably in other advanced nations as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got intelligent beings who are technological, who seem to be able to do things that we currently can't. We've got good evidence for thousands of years of humans interacting with them. I'm still baffled as to why we don't have great scientific inquiries into these subjects. And I think we're at sort of the dawn of that process for humanity. It's one of the reasons that I do this show, is I enjoy talking to people who are thinking about it and trying to start to put these puzzle pieces together, moving into our last arena of questions with this information, with this strong conviction that there's a technological intelligence operating around Earth. What do you think we should do about it collectively? Should we be moving toward nothing at all? Well, why not nothing? Why nothing?
Why? Because, I mean, in the course of human events, to use that phrase, we still need to do the things that humans do. We're born. We're born into families. The families raise us, educate us, make sure that we're able to survive on our own, giving us skills. We train in certain jobs. We get jobs. We meet others. And we have relationships with them, and we breed more humans. And as part of that, we need to provide. We still need to pay rent, pay mortgage. We need to buy food, put food on the table. We need to work to do that. We want to entertain ourselves and whatever entertainment one seeks. All of that, this normal human living. Who cares if NHI exists? Will that change anything right now? No, not really, because they've always been here. We have UAP task force, and we have Errol, we have witnesses coming forward. We have all of these witnesses coming forward, telling us about what they've experienced in their, professional backgrounds, and the things they're going to be doing in the future to help us understand more these other organizations that are being set up, like Skywatcher, Soul Foundation, and others. Does that change the way we live our lives? No. I still have to pay my mortgage. I still have to pay taxes, so forth and so on. So if we do nothing about it, we can still live a happy life. Right? So I'm a cynic in this. I take a cynical view because, again, I have my own personal theory of everything, which I believe, but I encourage no one else to believe it. You should believe your own personal theory of everything, and it's just as valid as mine, even if it says something completely different.
Well, you also have direct experience, which is, I think, something that a lot of people crave, even though, it's not always beneficial to interact with non-human intelligence. I think a lot of people would like that kind of certainty that you have by virtue of having had these face-to-face encounters.
Yeah, and I think people are looking for validation because if one thing that disclosure can do, no matter what level, and I think what we'll disclose is the existence of NHI and the existence of NHI technology. I don't think we'll disclose what the Department of Defense did with that knowledge. I don't think they'll ever disclose that. But having disclosed that, just say, yeah, we have the craft, we have the materials, and here there's bodies.
Yeah.
I think we should disclose to the point where then civilian scientists and engineers can come. People without clearances who won't need clearances because it's all declassified. There's absolutely no reason to declassify the existence of NHI and NHI technologies. There's a lot of reasons to classify why what we did with the NHI technology, if we built something
Sure.
that we want to keep secret from our adversaries, but the source materials, the source craft, the source biologics, the source beings, they should be studied by civilians without clearances, academics.
Man,
Because
I would love that.
do
It would be
something-
great for science.
Right, because what we did probably was to build something, either to spy on our adversaries or destroy our adversaries or win
Right.
in a war against
But
our
that's
adversaries.
exactly the reason that they won't ever disclose
do it,
even
'cause
the
they're
existence
afraid.
of these craft because they
They're
don't want their
afraid that-
adversaries to do the science.
But if our adversaries came forward and said, "Oh yeah, we have the same,"
Hmm.
it levels the playing field. It's like, we had two atomic weapons back in August of 1945, which exploded, and we start developing more. Well, there were spies embedded in the Manhattan program, as we know, and those spies reported to the Soviet Union. Soviet Union was able to develop their own, right? Now we both had it. So that was not a secret that we had atomic weapons. We advertised the fact that we destroyed 2 cities in Japan with atomic weapons, right? And then it's not a secret that Russia had atomic weapons. They wanted to advertise that we have one too. And guess what? Ours is bigger. Yeah, we wanted to exploit a 100 megaton device, but we miscalculated, and it only the yield was only 50 megatons. That is huge. That is a huge nuclear yield, but they disclosed it. China, when they developed their first nuclear weapon, they advertised it. Everyone advertises nuclear weapons, right?
Yeah.
That's something that can really cause us harm, right?
Hmm.
A doggone, I'm going to use the old-fashioned term, a doggone flying saucer in some hangar, that's all broken up because it crashed. Who does that threaten? No one. And so, who cares? It's only physics. Maybe how they fly is only physics, but so is nuclear weapons. It's just physics. It's applied physics for weaponization. Perhaps we applied the physics of a crashed vehicle for the weapon, but having the vehicle itself, if civilians had the access to that vehicle and to the propulsion system and that technology, they would develop things that will help us. Everybody wants that. Everybody wants that, and have some way of organizing that effort to benefit humanity, so no one will come up ahead to be able to dictate to another country, we have unlimited nuclear, we have unlimited power. It's not nuclear, but we have this magical unlimited power, and we're the head honcho on the planet, and you will do what we say. That doesn't work. If everyone has it, everyone would develop it for the benefit of humanity.
And it could be really great. I mean, we could do a ton of stuff with cheap energy.
Right. Energy. I'm interested in medical advances.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if we can fly from here to Alpha Centauri in 1 second. I don't give a damn about that. I don't care about the propulsion system so much, but I care about things that help the planet, to help us thrive, alternative sources of power that will help us, and so forth and so on.
Well, this is the answer to your question. How would it change my life? If we had access to this more advanced technology, we could do a lot of things that could improve people's lives. We could desalinate a ton of the ocean and cover the planet in agrarian paradise.
Right. But that happens not before disclosing the fact that we have it, but afterwards. So before disclosure, I don't give it much thought. But if the government so choose, go ahead.
Well, I'm a skeptic that we'll get any kind of disclosure, but something that you made me think of earlier is that adversarial intelligence communities, they care about these programs, and they are not listening to Susan Goff's blow-offs from the Pentagon. That's enough for the New York Times and the Washington Post to say, okay, well, I guess we just won't research this or spend any time investigating it or asking hard questions to anyone. Drives me crazy. But if you're the Chinese or the CIA or the Russian KGB, those organizations, they're not fooled by bullshit like that. They hear David Grush's testimony and they go, okay, there's something going on here, so we're going to try to find out what it is. I mean, I bet 1,000 apples that China is actively working its way toward whatever reverse engineering programs America has. I don't know if our security is good enough to have kept them out successfully so far, but just like the Manhattan Project, they've got to be trying. And likewise, if they have such reverse engineering programs, one would imagine that whatever UFO programs the American intelligence community has, we are intensely interested in our adversaries' efforts to develop this technology. Does that all sound right to you?
That sounds very right. And I would tease this much because you'll never see it. I talked a lot about that in my part of the Age of Disclosure film, which I did not appear in. I did film for it. But the 2 hours of testimony that I give, 2+ hours, none of that made it. My understanding is that I was given a film credit at the end. Nice. You stick around for the credits. No one sticks around for the credits, but if you stick around for the credits,
I will.
I was told that my name did appear, as well as others who did not appear on screen. But
so
I
talked about this.
Talked about that. And I provided some information that I cannot reveal ever, because I felt protected by that film because of who appeared in it. And what they said, I felt protected, that I felt freer to say what I said.
And it concerned basically our espionage or counter espionage.
Well, yeah, because CIA is a foreign intelligence collection agency. We collect foreign intelligence, and that's what I know. That's what I know. And instead, and also, I've touched on it a little bit by saying that we detected orbs, domes of light and orbs that Russians detected as well, and using their own radars. So I did reveal a little bit about that, but this would have been more of a smoking gun. But I can't reveal that.
Okay, well, to your point about not revealing it, has it ever occurred to you to set up like some kind of posthumous reveal situation? Like, have you ever written something down and said, for disclosure on my death, or when I'm you're gonna go to your grave with all this interesting information.
I'm taking it to my grave. I'm taking it to my grave. There's really, it's all out there. You just got to know who to trust and who to believe. Because there's a lot of garbage out there from people who are charlatans, basically. And another CIA who's never a direct colleague of mine, Jim Semivan was never a direct colleague, but we were in CIA at the same time. The other CIA officer out there is Dr. Ron Pandolfi, and he uses the term crooks and loons for people who spread like misinformation and disinformation.
Yeah.
They're all crooks and loons out there to make a buck, or they're just crazy. And they need mental health. He probably thinks that about me as well, and Jim Semivan. But there are people out there. The point being is that in a way he's right. He is right. There are people who know nothing that make up stuff and want to get other people to believe them.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know why they do that, because I mean, from personal experience, I didn't want to do this. I pushed you back for a while.
Yeah.
People think that I go out and say, hey, interview me. I don't do that. If you contact me for an interview, I'll give you a million reasons why I don't want to do it. And, it's just a period between 23 and 25, 2023 and 2025. I just didn't want to do this anymore. I thought enough information was out there, and I knew more witnesses will be coming forward. And I said, well, let's see what they have to say. And I only came back on social media, and I have an X account I did not want, only because UFO Sarah had an X space and invited me on the X space. And the first thing I asked, do I have to have an X account to be on X spaces? Yes, you do.
Unfortunately, yes.
I'll have to and by the way, I'm going to announce that I know a lot of people follow me, but I haven't contributed anything in there for a long time. And it's been several months. And because I'm not interested in contributing anything about this topic in X, I like commenting on the state of the intelligence community, for example. I like doing that because I actually, on the record, I'm going to say I support what DNI Tulsi Gabbard is doing. And I know she's a controversial figure, and I'm going to get hate mail about that, but I actually believe what she's doing is very good for the intelligence community. It's just grown too large and too bloated. But
Interesting.
other than commenting on things like what the ODNI is doing or this and that, I'm not interested in the topic, and I'm going to announce by the time that they hear this particular interview come out that I would have deleted my X account. And I apologize to those who followed me, but I am not interested in doing this.
We're sorry to see you go, but we're happy for your mental health. Honestly, I applaud your decision for your own well-being. Yeah. I'm curious, though, who you think we should listen to in this space. You said there are lots of cranks and loons. Who do you trust? Who should we trust? Who should we follow or pay attention to?
I know certain people have access to key folks. So I would go right out. I recently interviewed, and it hasn't aired yet, but just recently I interviewed with Whitley Strieber. And he's another person I've been pushing back, saying, wait, Whitley, I don't want to do it yet. And I think he complained about it in Coast to Coast AM. He complained about me not wanting to interview with him. But he knew that it was the door was open to him. It's just the timing wasn't right. And so Whitley Strieber is one, and I would say, and he's a classic, right? Even he's there from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I would say from the more current folks who do these interviews, I'm really impressed with the work of James Ian Doley, for example. There's just two names. I don't want to leave everybody out, but I would say, here, just because I like their interviews, it's because they interview people I want to listen to myself. Cool. Right? Yeah. So I want to hear what they're saying. So I want to follow their interviews. But there are others. They're all very valuable in getting information. So just find someone that you like listening to, and just follow them. You don't have to believe everything you hear. I encourage people not to believe anything I say. Find out for yourself. By God, I'm giving you the roadmap, the terrain of where to go to find information for yourself, and just find out for yourself. And so there's two names right there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
go ahead. And there's another guy that does something really good. It's the Why Files, WHY.
Okay,
Why Files. He has this little fish in a tank. I like that setup.
Who does this voice? Yeah.
I like that. Because
I like that guy too.
He's so good that I have people in CIA writing to me. Did you see this? You got to see this. There's CIA officers who are interested in the topic who tell me that I should go listen to the Why Files. So cool. There's another podcast there. Listen to the Why Files. It's really good.
Fascinating.
And there's one who used to be. He's British. He was a C of E, Church of England priest, I believe. I think his name is Wallace. Okay. But he does from that ancient civilization viewpoint, going back and looking at ancient civilizations and tying like religious references, belief systems, and these ancient texts to ancient civilizations and what we're seeing now. And I apologize for not coming up with that name directly. But
we'll be able to find it. I'll put it in the description here if I can Google it up. I have found that my personal focus in this area in having this conversation, because I don't think disclosure is going to happen, although I have pressed my elected representatives to press for it, I just don't see it happening. I would love for it to happen, but because I don't think it's going to happen, my main goal structurally is to encourage scientific inquiry in this area. I want UFOs to become as interesting to science as black holes, dark matter, quarks, leptons, things we understand conceptually but want more information about, and the things that we agree are interesting. That would be my dream, that the scientific community acknowledges that the study of non-human intelligence around planet Earth currently is a field of worthy inquiry that we should spend resources and time pursuing and investigating. And if we could just get to that point, then I think finding more information will be, a multi-generational project, in the same way that like mapping the standard model of quantum physics will be a multi-generational project.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're at that tipping point yet. I think we're close to it, but I think conversations like this help because they help just sort of like warm up the water around the subject. And I'm yammering on here, but I think something the UFO community could do a little better is, instead of looking for those smoking guns, like they come to your interviews saying like, what little crumb of cheese can we get from John Ramirez about like the deeper fact of the situation? That's very fun, and it's like the catnip of ufology. But the deeper thing is just being interested in the subject at all, like staying focused on it, staying interested, and staying open to the possibility that this is a real area of inquiry. And I guess there's not a question there. Sorry, I just went off.
That's okay. That's okay. Paul Wallace, that's his name.
Okay, great.
Paul Wallace looks at that. And also the QHHT practitioner, Sarah Brexman Cosme. I like listening to that. And Diana Pasulka, obviously. And I would say that I have memberships. I'm a Richard Dolan member, and I like what he's doing. And so I support Richard Dolan and everything he does. And also Paola Harris. I have an account with her, Patreon account with her. I like what she's doing because she does original research. She doesn't do textbook research like sitting and looking at web pages. She actually travels. So she's quite, she has an expertise in Latin America, for example. So she doesn't just read about it. She actually travels and researches that. And I like filmmakers as well that have made films.
Like
for
James
example,
Fox.
James, yes, absolutely. Ron James also. Ron James, and so I myself, I don't know everything. I know very little, but I get information from these other sources. But I combine what I hear with what I know and what I was told by credible sources, and so I would say they're doing excellent work.
Do you think we should have a United Nations organization around this? Should we have some kind of like international protocol in place for talking to NHI or responding to them culturally?
Well, the UN has a space office.
Uh-huh.
And I think they're involved in some way. I certainly think that if we all showed our cards on the table, if the Russians, Chinese, and the Americans in some time in the future will come forward and say, well, this is what we were able to recover. And who should be the custodian of that? It has to be some international body, some neutral body. And so there is an Office of Space in the United Nations. I think that already exists.
Yeah, that's true, but it's mostly about like who gets to exploit what resources from what lifeless rock.
Right. Yeah, they do that as well. They do monitor. There's certain treaties about space and how you use space. But by golly, they're thinking about mining things off of asteroids and the moon. And,
yeah.
I heard something about the American government is interested in placing a nuclear reactor on the moon. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but there's that interest, and so.
Yeah, I'm in favor. I'm pro terraform. I'm pro expansion, but we'll see. I mean, if there are reptiloids on the dark side of the moon, they might be pissed about that. So
they may not like.
We'll see how they take it.
Yeah,
what do you think? Go ahead.
No. To your point, there should be an international body doing that. But then you look at international bodies for weapons of mass destruction and nuclear power. It's the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, I believe, under the UN. How effective have they been in monitoring the Iran nuclear program? So
Moderate,
there's that. So but I think if countries gather to do that, and at least the principal three countries, others will follow.
I want to bounce this off you. I've been thinking a little bit about the act of proactive communication here. I think a lot of UFO science is basically built around the question, is this shit real? And like trying to get some data to suggest that it is or prove that it isn't. My feeling is it is likely real. These non-human intelligences are probably here. And if that's the case, then we should try to talk to them. And it would be good for us to do that in a public setting so that we could confirm their existence and establish some kind of formal collective interchange of ideas. How does that strike you?
Yeah. And you're talking about communications with other countries?
Communications with non-human intelligence. Maybe on an international basis, ideally.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, they will have to show up first, wouldn't they?
Yeah, it's fascinating that they mostly don't. I'm curious about your takes on that too.
They will have to show up, and that's why one of my favorite movies is the movie Arrival.
Great flick.
I think they have the creatures, beings we call heptoids, and a scientist was able to, I guess, decrypt their language, their pattern language, the circular pattern language.
It's just a really great short story too.
Reminding me of that movie of communicating with them. But then this brings up the other alleged program called was it Preserve Destiny? That ostensibly was an NSA program or somebody in the intelligence community. I believe it's NSA because they're the primary agency for cryptology to communicate with NHI. You have to go interview Dan Sherman about that because I don't know too much about it. I've heard about it. And then I'm wondering if we believe, and I don't know if this to be true, but if some people believe, I would put it this way: some people believe that crop circles are real, and if crop circles are real and are NHI source, what is the message in that? So maybe they're trying to communicate with us, and we haven't yet deciphered the language. I think the communication in a crop circle, a personal belief of mine, is it's more than the picture. I believe it's the structure of the crop circle itself.
I've heard you propose attempting to try to translate a binary code here.
A binary code just based on the width of what's the raised and depressed areas of the crop circle. Find the smallest one that's raised, call it a 1, smallest one that's depressed, and call it a 0, and go around a circle and count the ones and zeros and see what binary code you get out of it. I don't know if they've already done that. Probably get nothing. But the point being is that there are other ways to look at it other than what we see. As far as communication, a lot of experiencers have communicated with NHI.
Yeah.
Chris Bledsoe, for example, people who know Chris, he kind of knows when they're going to show up. So if you go to his house and you're having like a nice conversation and he'll say, "Oh, stop, I have to stop. They're here." And you go out and there they are, And so I look forward to, I've been in communication with Chris Bledsoe, but mostly through text messaging. I don't know if I had a phone call with him, but I want to go out to see one of his watch parties. He holds them in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I like to go to one in the future. I don't know which one, but I would like to meet him because he apparently seems to communicate or get some communication from the orbs.
Yeah. Well, so that sounds like a positive avenue. I guess what I'm pitching here is some kind of like watch party, CE5 party, but combined with like a diplomatic mission to attract some attention and then attempt proactively to engage and see if we can demonstrate that there's really a two-way street here, because that would spur a lot more scientific and cultural interest. But B, then actually do some diplomacy. Like if there really are NHI around Earth, like conducting scientific extractions of human DNA, or like even just popping up and bothering people in the middle of the night, we have a diplomatic area of concern. Like we have something to talk to them about. And it would make sense for us to at least attempt to establish a dialogue. Does that seem right to you?
I think a formalized dialogue should be established. It's not. Here's where I delineate this formal dialogue. Some people believe that we've already done that but
Mm.
secretly,
Mm-hmm.
that we've already have that dialogue and there are certain agreements in place.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know if that to be true. I never heard it directly, but it's out there, in social media world, and other
Yeah,
people
people
have talked
say
about it.
maybe like
Sure.
the Eisenhower era,
Yeah.
there was some kind of agreement.
Right. I don't know that to be true. I've never seen anything like that. But outside of that, this will work only if it's public, only if governments around the planet agree to do this. But you have to establish protocols of who gets to do what, because there's going to be competition in that too. We're not going to be all cooperative in doing this. It's going to be competitive.
I'm sort of thinking it maybe has to start extra governmental, like non-governmental. Like I think we maybe need to start it with a civilian program.
Right. And
to establish that it's real at all.
I believe that's what Skywatcher is doing, using
They've been
psionics.
Doing the summoning of some kind.
Yeah, the summoning. Yeah. There was a Russian retired Air Force Major General that said that the Russians did summoning as well, that they were able to lure craft down.
So it seems like this is possible, but the next thing we need to do is get it to be public. Like we need it to happen in a way that there are cameras on it, like CNN cameras, or somebody at least streaming live on YouTube, and then it creates some sort of demonstrable interaction that can spur a broadening of that.
Yeah. And so my concern about this is that a lot of these events that occur, or human-initiated contact events, are publicized. And it's not only known within the UAP social media world, it's also known to the government. My concern is that the government will then provide something to look at. Oh, there's going to be a gathering of these folks. Let's fly, one of our
secret craft.
Yeah, let's fly one of them over there and give them something to look at. Let's generate plasma balls and give them something to look at. Just to further the idea that they're actually doing this with NHI and not doing it with U.S. Air Force or U.S. Space Force. I'm concerned about that. And that goes back to the hoaxing that goes on, or the hazing of making people believe in UFOs. If that's carried out to that extent, where let's say we do something in public, I'm concerned about it being staged on the government's part. And that technology does exist to make you see things that aren't there. It does exist.
That's intriguing. And you're right, problematic.
And it's not secret either, because orbs, you know what can create orbs? HARP. You know what color the orbs are the HARP creates? They're orange and green.
What is HARP? Sorry for my ignorance.
It's the High Altitude Atmospheric Research Program in Alaska.
Oh, okay.
It's a phased array of antennas pointed skyward.
Okay.
And depending on the condition of, I guess, the ionosphere, they can bend waves. They can also use certain frequencies to create plasma balls. And I actually found a source for that, a legitimate source. And I can't find it now. And I look for it again and it's gone. But in that source, they actually had a picture of an orange orb and a green orb that HARP generated, and how they generated those orbs.
Interesting.
That to me is interesting. And depending on the ionosphere, they can bend that. They can bend the signal coming out of HARP. They can bend the signal because it's phased array. They can adjust the signal so that that orb will appear like it's over a certain part of the country.
Okay.
And then move it around so that it looks like it's traveling. So I just gave some debunkers some ammunition.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
they should look it up.
Percentage of these things have got to be secret tech.
Orange and green plasma ball generation by HARP is a real thing. I've seen it in a document that I unfortunately can't put my hands on now.
Okay, well, so that would be something to look out for if we were trying to confirm this
Right.
this kind of communication event. On the NHI side, why do you think they're being so secretive? Like, why have your friends in cloaks not made themselves more publicly apparent?
I don't know. Nothing prevents them from showing up. I mean, I think they can show up anytime they want. I don't think anything is preventing them from showing up unless there's an agreement from the U.S. government to them saying you can't show up.
That maybe they're not supposed to.
You're not. You did it to us once over D.C. in July of 1952. Don't do that to us again. You're not going to show up. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a
I've heard nothing
hypothesis.
about it. Yeah, I've heard nothing about any such agreement at all about them not showing up. But it makes sense to me that if they don't show up, it's probably because they don't want to, for whatever reason, or we're not ready yet, or they want us to come to a certain part where you come meet us part of the way where your government will announce officially our existence, and then we'll meet you part of the way by actually showing up.
Do you think there's any chance that they might be concerned about humanity? Like, if they did make themselves apparent, would we potentially be a threat to them?
Yeah, it's the torches and pitchfork scenario.
Yeah.
Of humans being afraid of them.
Right.
That could
and then
possibly
responding aggressively.
be that. I don't know. I would think that. Not disparaging anyone's belief system, but those who are very fundamentally religious would think that these are the signs in heaven we were warned about. That are from Satan, and they would cast it as demonic. And if you have people like that with that belief system in the positions of authority, that can't happen. That such an encounter will not happen. It will be a threat to the NHI if we go out and say we have to destroy them, shoot on sight, kind of thing.
Right.
That would not be good. Even though I would think they'll have technology far more advanced than ours.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a condition that they would like, and I think they're already here anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if things go ahead.
No, I don't know if I'm able to tell who's a human hybrid or not. If they're that close to what we look at. I don't know.
Do you have some
know.
theories about why a being might want to create a hybrid?
Their own race is dying, and they need to infuse it with fresh DNA. I don't know. Just pure speculation. I have no idea.
I would say the infiltration hypothesis is one of the creepier possibilities in this space.
Well, yeah, and to tell you the truth, if I was an advanced NHI, I don't have to kill anybody to take over the planet for my NHI race. I'll just have technology to prevent human conception. If humans on the planet were made infertile for 2 generations, 50 years, there'll be no humans left on the planet. You don't have to destroy the planet to take it over. If that being the case, that's what I would do.
That's a good point.
They haven't done that because I think we are ourselves, perhaps, for lack of a better term, we are their adopted children, if not their biological children. Of certain NHI races, the ones that certain witnesses have said were very human-like, and we gave them the nickname tall Nordics. We heard of tall Nordics. They're like human-looking. So, like, would they want to destroy us if they know that they, in some way, this goes to the old gods and goddesses group, and created us, that had some intervention in having us come to be. They wouldn't want to destroy the creation. And if you believe in the Old Testament, that already happened once, where a god destroyed its own creation, right? And other others were saved in an ark,
Mhm.
which I think is a metaphor for UAP craft, and they preserved DNA of other beings or critters, creatures, animal life. They preserve animal and plant life DNA because you can store a lot of DNA of every creature on Earth in a very small space. You know,
Yeah.
you don't need to physically. You know, that's one of the debunks of the fact that Noah and the ark couldn't have happened, because I mean it would be impossible with the size of ship that was described in the Old Testament. You couldn't have held all those elephants and lions and tigers and all the, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you couldn't have done that. But if you had their DNA, you can certainly preserve that. And for some reason, bring CIA back into it. CIA wants to clone a mammoth, a woolly mammoth. Why? I don't know. CIA announced we want to clone a woolly mammoth. Why? Why would CIA want to do that? There's some reason that CIA is interested in cloning.
Because they're interested in the A to Z expertise, as you mentioned earlier.
Expertise, but why clone a woolly mammoth? But, you know, there you go.
Well, looping back one more time to the CIA that you brought up earlier, to the CIA operations, you were describing earlier in our conversation the feeling and the practices of being in another country, and it seems to me like there might be some relevant comparisons to draw to NHI operating within human society. That sometimes I think about, like how we would operate if we visited an alien world and we wanted to learn about it. Integration does seem like it would be pretty high on our list in terms of how we would want to infiltrate and get more information from that society. So the question, I guess, to post up to you there would be, are there any things we should look for as to run our own sort of counter intel against potential infiltration from higher intelligences?
I would know what you could do. Yeah. If they want to show up and they want to be here and blend in, if they look like us, they can do it anytime they want to. So I don't know if there's any way to prevent that from happening at all if they look like us. And those that don't look like us, they're the people of experiencers have described all manner of beings, and they fall into like basically a handful of categories. You know, you have the Nordics, you have the reptilians, you have the mantis, and then you have like the grays. And there seems to be like larger grays and smaller grays. You know, so you basically have these types of beings, and the ones that look like us are the Nordics. They already blend in, and the others, you know, they show up for certain people, but they haven't appeared in public. You know, so I don't know.
It does seem like hybrids would fit the bill here in terms of potential infiltration or intelligence gathering operations. If you wanted to, if you had the ability, you could maybe combine members of DNA from your species with our species to move through our society more easily. That is like real reach for tinfoil hat kind of stuff. But if we can speculate, if we think hybrids are real and we're speculating about a reason, intelligence might be a good one.
Going back to the CIA historian Gerald K. Haynes, he did say that the interest was also related to not just hybrids, but alien DNA in the human genome. And he said that human genome, mostly, there's very little of it is actually human. He said most of it is alien. I don't know where he got that information from. Well, that's what he stated, that, we're interested in the alien part of the human genome.
And that would be a claim that we are ancestors, or that they are our ancestors.
Ancestors, exactly, which goes back to my own theory of everything, personal theory of everything. That there are descendants coming back to see their ancestors and to adjust things or to make things better or have a different outcome. The only thing I would come back for is to prevent a catastrophic mistake in the way we do artificial intelligence.
Mm.
As artificial intelligence evolves more advanced into synthetic intelligence, that if they had knowledge that, the humans back then did this and it's not going to turn out well.
Yeah.
And we need to do something about it to preserve our own future, that they're making these little mistakes, here, maybe we can adjust it.
I guess that would imply that it doesn't go so badly that some humans can't get back here.
There
was too many negatives, but
the thing about AI is AI thinking it's better than humans. To save humanity, we have to get rid of humanity.
Yeah, and it could even be a kind of a hiccup. It could be like the paperclip scenario where AI isn't trying to kill us; it's just following its underlying orders of maximizing paperclips.
Yeah. I've heard that as well. So I don't know, but the one thing I am concerned about is artificial intelligence and what we humans are doing with it and where it's going to lead in the future.
It does seem like we're on the brink of a technological explosion here.
It is, and it could go really, really well, or it could go not so well. It's particularly if certain entities weaponize it.
Yeah,
weaponizing AI by the government would not be good.
It's unfortunately just going to be a double-edged sword, I think. The same tech that's going to allow us to potentially cure cancer is going to allow terrorists to make bioweapons and empower AI gods that could wipe us all out. This is a big gamble. So it does make sense.
Right. But it's all speculation.
History. Right. I mean,
I'm not saying it's going to happen or anything. It's a concern of mine. If you ask me what keeps you up at night. It's a reasonable concern. Keeps me up at night is what we're doing with AI and the future course of AI, whether it's to our benefit or to our detriment.
And to that point, that makes this moment in history especially interesting if you were, say, traveling from the future or even from far away in the galaxy or the universe. This is a moment in our development that you might want to watch.
Right.
Is there anything you'd like to leave us with as we all watch this moment with gritted teeth and shortening fingernails?
Well, no, I pretty much said everything I wanted to say. I did want to make the announcement that I'm leaving social media, and I want to convey my apologies to those who follow me, thinking that they'll get more information from me. I don't know anything past September 2009, and things I do know, I can't say everything. But I try to share as much as I can that I was allowed to share. I'm not a whistleblower. Never call me a whistleblower. I have no whistles. I knew some things, and I sent it to CIA to see if I can say those things. So far, they haven't pushed back on what I've stated. They were uncomfortable with Nazis, hybrids, and 2027.
And military labs, I heard you mention as well that CIA asked you not to talk about potential human involvement with abduction.
Military
activity.
labs, yeah. Probably more so than 2027, because they don't want someone who's been in CIA to say, "Oh, I know the future." I don't know the future. I can't predict the future. So, the person who's saying things about 2027, if you're interested in 2027, may I encourage you to just follow Daryl Anka and his channeling of Bashar, because Bashar says a lot of things about 2027 as channeled through Daryl Anka. So I'll say, just follow that podcast, wherever Bashar, you can find Bashar on YouTube or your favorite podcast. Just listen to what Bashar says about 2027. I don't say anything about it. I don't know. But
I know people have kind of taken you out of context on that, and I won't drag you down.
Everything that we say is taken out of context.
I do think it's worth restating what you did just say, which is that you've run stuff by to ask them whether you could talk about it, and they've so far given you a blank check, except for the topic of Nazis employed by the U.S. government, military labs, as in human involvement with abduction activities, and 2027 as a general subject, and also hybrids. Hybrids, those four subjects the CIA has asked you to please not talk more about.
Hybrids, not so much in the sense that it was stated in public by a CIA official, the historian. So that is somewhat semi-official. Not official because he didn't state it in public. He stated it for a closed audience, but that closed audience was unclassified venue. So they're not pushing that back. Nazis, I just think it's a discomfort level.
Yeah.
Just discomfort. It's part of history. You can look it up. I mean, you can look it up. People know that. It's beyond the paperclip rocket scientists. These are like intelligence people who helped us. And then we were able to infiltrate the Eastern Bloc, the Warsaw Pact countries, because they were familiar with that. And it involved former German General Richard Reinhard Gehlen and his organization. And, there is a little bit of trickle dealing with UFO, dealing with what Spain was able to do, with Francisco Franco, the fascist leader of Spain for decades, and his ability to use his country to funnel Nazis into Latin America, and perhaps some technology that went with them as well.
Interesting. Well,
That's
you could
all
also see the CIA being uninterested in, or interested in not keeping this as a major topic of conversation. Like, it doesn't necessarily suggest that there's secret Nazi alien technology involved. They could just be asking people not to talk about it because they don't want the agency to be associated with that history.
Right. They don't want a spotlight thrown on something that you can look up for yourself. They prefer not to have that out there, I guess.
I do think it's really cool that you engaged with them before you embarked on your public discourse.
All of us, Jim St. Van did, and I did as well. Anybody who claims to be CIA and goes out in public saying things, if they didn't go through the pre-classification review board, they're imposters. Because it's unfathomable for CIA officers to speak out of turn like that, and they know that they're subject to prosecution. And people have been prosecuted revealing CIA secrets and have gone to jail.
This kind of doesn't feel like an outro question, but do you think we can trust the CIA? I think people have a hard time trusting them as an organization. Do you trust the CIA?
Depends on, I can turn that question around. Do you trust your local newspaper? Do you trust the New York Times? Basically, it's just a collection agency. They collect information. And the operations conducted are for the purpose of collecting information from humans. The programs launched are for collection of information from humans or from technology. And the secrecy is to protect the human sources because they're perishable. If they're discovered, they've been killed. And the means of communicating that information from a foreign country is extremely fragile. So that's why there's secrecy. For technology, it's obvious. It's like any technology that might be military. We don't want that technology revealed at all because we lose the advantage. And if you know of a technical means that we extract information, then you can counter that. You can employ countermeasures against that, and we lose the source of information. So everything we do is secret, is for a collection of information that we collect, process, and analyze and produce into intelligence for the White House, for the president. Our first and customer is always the president. That's why it's secret. Now, there's certain other operations that were done that I think they're like a little bit on the rogue side of things. And if you talk to Danny Sheehan, he's the expert on that. So he studied the rogue operations of the CIA. He doesn't trust CIA at all. He thinks it's one big illegal rogue operation. And it's nothing like that. He's never worked in CIA. He doesn't know what we really do and how we do it. I have, and I would say, it's not like that. It's like working in a newspaper office where you have sources of information. It's just that the sources of information, confidential sources, need to be protected. Just like a newspaper reporter, you have a source of information that must remain anonymous, and that source is providing you information that you then report. You can't reveal that source's name, and we can't either. So that's why there's so much secrecy. but there's certain operations that seem kind of on the rogue kind of aspect, and that one is like everything to do with JFK assassination. Seems to be kind of CIA rogue. Senior CIA retired officer actually said that he believes there was a rogue operation before the JFK files were released. So here he came out, and his name is Rolf Mowat Larson. He headed Department of Energy Intelligence and Counterintelligence Office. Before that, he was chief of station in Moscow, and before that, he held senior positions in CIA. He actually said, and I heard him say this to my face in public at a meeting, that he believes, and this is after I retired recently, he said that he believes it was a rogue operation.
Wow.
Well, so that was before any documents were released from the JFK committee at all. So that could be, and also I'm not too sure about like narcotics, whether that was rogue also, because I don't know if funds generated by that. I have no knowledge of any funds generated from deliberate sale of narcotics that were then used to fund other operations in CIA. That seems far-fetched to me, but Danny Sheehan believes that you know, and then the person that reported, the reporter is dead. You know, I think it was a San Jose newspaper, the Mercury. I forget the full name of the newspaper, but he reported on CIA's using narcotics and selling narcotics in league with cartels in order to get money, and some of that money went to CIA to fund rogue operations. That seems far-fetched to me, but Danny Sheehan believes it.
It's such a challenging nexus of democracy and secrecy, the intelligence community, because we, at the same time, have to trust these organizations to protect us, and yet secrecy is a kind of power that can potentially corrupt. So it's hard to have a perfect trust of such an organization, even as we need it to function in contemporary society. And that reminds me that I'd like to say thank you for your service, for your 25 years of working in this organization.
Yep, you're welcome. 25 years is all I could stand. And
well, I'm glad you got out.
Jim Simi Van lasted 25 years. He joined in 1982, retired 2007. I joined in 1984, retired 2009. 25 years, and that's a good career at CIA. He advanced a lot higher than I did. He advanced to senior intelligence service. I went up to GS-15, one step below senior intelligence service, and that was enough. And I enjoyed it very much. But no, I think there needs to be more oversight of what we do. I really do. Not because we're doing anything illegal. It's just that we spend a lot of money, and somebody needs to get a handle on that money, and that's the job of the ODNI, of how we spend that money, where that money's going to, what's it funding. And I like Tulsi Gabbard. I'll say that, and I'll get hate mail for it, but I like what she's doing with the intelligence community. When I joined the DNI, we had hundreds of people in the DNI. Under the Biden administration, it blossomed to 2,000 plus in the DNI. It was never supposed to be an independent intelligence agency. It's supposed to be just a managerial staff of the intelligence community, following on to the director of central intelligence staff, management staff, community management staff. It was a small group of a few hundred at the most, maybe several dozen, but it wasn't its own intelligence agency. And ODNI was supposed to be that same function. And it grew to its own intelligence agency, and it's just gotten to be too big.
Interesting.
And, CIA never reveals how many people are in CIA, but my understanding is that from my time, it grew by several thousands, to the point that they needed to put people in other buildings. There are more people outside of CIA headquarters than inside CIA headquarters. That's how many people
makes sense.
It's just too big. And what are they doing? You know, I don't know. They're all working on something. And I just don't, it seems crazy to me that the intelligence community has grown so large. Having won the Cold War,
programs.
oh, we had compartmented programs all the time, and we won the Cold War. We basically, I guess we could take a victory lap for winning the Cold War. But I thought we didn't need all that people, and I still think we don't need that many people to do what we do, particularly when we leverage technology to do a lot of stuff.
It's going to be interesting to see how AI affects that.
Yeah.
Well, I have to bring this in for a landing today, but I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for investing so much of your time with me and sharing so much of your wisdom and experience. Thank you again for your service. If you'd be open to it, I would be fascinated to keep up this conversation in years ahead as we learn more interesting information. Meanwhile, I hope you enjoy your retirement and stay off social media for your own mental health and well-being. And please feel free to check in directly at any time, because I would consider you a friend, and I'd be happy to help you in any way that I possibly can. I'm very grateful for your time today, John.
Well, thank you very much, Caleb. Appreciate it.
And that's the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening or watching. If you like WTUFO and you want it to keep existing, support us at patreon.com/WTUFO or on YouTube or on Buzzsprout for as little as you want per month. Patreon or YouTube or Buzzsprout, this show is brought to you by you. So thank you very much for your support. I hope you keep listening, and I hope you have a lovely day.